gas masks and grenades. Gas masks and grenades. Gas masks and grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades.
Welcome to Gas Masks and Hand Grenades. I am your host, Jeff. Mea culpa. I screwed up. I did not get the timing right with Dan. And I'm sitting here at 12 o'clock going, oh man, did I screw this up? And then I started looking into it. And I'm like, yeah, you screwed it up, dude. It's not till 1 o'clock. So everybody, please welcome the one, the only, the legendary Mr. Dan Swanö. Thanks for coming by today, Dan. On time as opposed to late, like I was.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Well, it's great to have you, man. This is your second trip here. I don't know if you remember any of the first interview. You probably don't, and that's completely fine. But we did some promo. We did about 90 minutes when the Purgatory Afterglow album had just come out. So we're talking almost a year and a half ago. And if I'm not wrong, we're kind of wrapping up the last chapter coming up. Am I correct about that? You've got Elegy and I believe Cryptic coming out on the 3rd. Is that correct?
Yeah, just preparing the orders for Cryptic and Elegy 2 today to be shipped. So it's really it's a little bit. I still remember the excitement of the first that came out. It's just wow, and then it's all been a whirlwind, and now we're already at the end. And I remember thinking, it's like, oh, it's so far in the future. It's in fucking 2026. This will be over. And that's soon. And honestly, it does not feel like the same time that passed, between 1985 and 1987. That was just like a lifetime vibe. And this is now pretty much the same amount of time, but it just feels like yesterday that I was so nervous about how people would react to the whole thing with the remixes and the packaging and the whole vibe of the whole project. But it's been one crazy ride to the past, that's for sure.
It kind of sounds like, we're both in our 50s. And, well, actually, I'm going to be 60 in less than a week. And
congratulations.
I made it, shockingly. My mom, much to my mom's surprise, I believe. But maybe you feel the same way. But, dude, time. I remember when I was in my 20s, thinking somebody in their 60s was ancient, right? That's like a really old person, right? And here I am now. I'm still listening to death metal and all my metal and going to shows left and right. In fact, on my birthday, I'm traveling out to Pittsburgh to see Emperor and Blood Incantation on my 60th birthday, which is kind of a cool little gift I'm giving myself. But are you of the same thought process where, and it sounds like you are based on what you just said, that the older we get, the faster time speeds up?
Yeah, and I think that's that's not the case from a physical thing, but it's something you heard someone say, and at one point in life you were kind of, oh yeah, that's correct, because these last 10 years from 2016 to 2026 do not feel in any way like between 1980 and 1990. It's like insane, how much happened in those 10 years. And it's, I don't know, for some people, I guess that's their kind of 80s to 90s. It was 16 to 26 because they were around that age when you are, just so much stuff happens that change you. You go from being a kid to a preteen to a teen, and then kind of ending up being almost like an adult, but you're still kind of a child and a teen all in one.
Yeah.
So I definitely started feeling that stuff sometime after the turn of the century there, the 2000s.
Yeah.
It's just, I know it sounds super strange and all this, but somehow the stuff that happened in the 80s and in the 90s, for me, I don't remember that much of the 70s. It feels
Right.
more real than something that happened in the 2000 somethings.
Dude, I totally
I
get
don't
it.
know. A lot of
Totally get it.
important things happened, but it's like when someone say, "Yeah, that was back in '83," or when someone, "Yeah, that was back in 2002," and I'm like, it's cooler when it was back in '83. Sounds
Yeah.
cooler than something that was back in '02, But I guess it's when you are born and all that stuff. But,
Right. You were born in the
it's
70s. I was born
yeah,
in the late 60s. And
yeah,
it just, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, and you probably remember this quite well, that, well, first of all, it's a nostalgia thing. I think nostalgia, some people aren't nostalgic, but I am. And I always kind of think back to, man, things were so much better in the 70s and the 80s, and I don't necessarily mean that from a political sense or a world geopolitical sense or just a world, but world culturally, we're constantly bombarded with stuff, and as much as these things are cool, they sometimes, I hate them so much because it's like, man, I think this is one of the reasons, and the things that we're talking on right now, the computers and whatnot, they speed up our sense of the importance of the moment, maybe. You know what I mean? Do you feel the
yeah.
same way?
It's more accessible. Everything is faster, and I mean, in some ways, I think it's great to be able to use this technology to do stuff faster. But there's also something about this that stuff takes a little bit more time. It's also very instant. It's also extremely quick.
Yes.
You don't have to really wait for anything other than still some, stuff you cannot really send in an email. You still need to ship it.
Right.
But it's also there that this constant, like, you have to deliver everything so fast, and everything needs to be. It's like you're running a race against time all the time. And yeah, it's also us. I'm also a super nostalgic person, and some stuff was better in the old days. But I think if we had this when we were younger, we would also have embraced it and enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, for you, that's a good lead-off question. I mean, you've been recording music since what year? The early 80s? 79, 80, 81?
Yeah, I started recording myself together with my brothers. We had a band called Fords in the end of the 70s. And that's around, I think it's early 79. There's the first recording of me together with my brother.
Okay.
And I'm performing a song called Time to Die, which is very funny.
As a child.
I was 6 years old, and I was kind of growling already back then. It's super weird.
Wow.
And that's when I was fascinated by this, that you know how to work a microphone and hear yourself being played back when it was recorded and all that. So that was always hand in hand with me writing a song. It was always meant to be recorded. I'm not one of those, let's perform it live or just play it in the rehearsal room. I always wrote to record it, and that's then when it's ready,
Right.
And
was that on just like a handheld tape recorder?
No, that was actually one of the. It's called. I think it's a German company called Tandberg. My father was a teacher, and he had this in class. This old reel-to-reel machines.
Oh yeah.
And at one point he had one at home as well, because I think he sometimes recorded on these tapes and edited and played it back in class and all that. And I think it was recorded on one of those, and one of those microphones with a super strange connector that only worked with that reel-to-reel. And
right.
I kind of remember the microphone. It was a little bit angular, not a round thing. And I think it was some kind of orange button you could push, and that was the microphone. And later on, we started recording.
Right? Just a single track, right? Not multi-tracking, right? Yeah. Okay.
No, it was just like one thing. And then my brother recorded live to a stereo cassette deck with two microphones. And then it kind of went in various steps to some reel-to-reel stuff and some cassette studio where you did bouncing from one cassette to the other and then back again, back and forth. And I think the real the real thing started, I think, in the summer of '87. We recorded on a reel-to-reel thing with my band Ghost, and we recorded ourselves and ping-ponged the hell out of this. You recorded drums, guitar, and bass at the right volume, the right balance to one track, and then you overdubbed the whole song onto the second track while you added something, played the whole track to the end, and then you did back and forth. And I think we bought our first 4-track recorder sometime in the late '88 or early '89, and that's when I really started to really get interested in recorded drums on one track, guitar on one, bass on one, and vocals on the fourth. I still have some of those old multi-track 4-track cassette things, and then it went to 8 tracks, then went to 16, and then it went to 24 for a bit, and then it went to a lot of tracks.
Unlimited
later on.
Now, unlimited. Yeah. I actually, in prep for this thing, I was trying to find my old Fostex 4-track, and I have it somewhere. I just don't know where it's stored away somewhere forever. And I, like you, I discovered when I moved a little while back, I discovered a bunch of cassettes of just a lot of noodling. A lot of it's like acoustic tracks with just me singing into one track and strumming chords in the other. Then there's other stuff that I have where I've got like a bunch of digital effects, and I'm making like sound collages and just lumping stuff on top of each other on this 4-track. And it's like, wow, man, a lot of this is really shitty, but some of it's really, really cool, And it's kind of like you run into that stuff and you're like, wow, I don't remember even doing this. But then you listen to it a little bit and you're like, wait a minute, I do kind of remember that. So kind of it's a cool, again, that nostalgic thing that we talk about. You've gone into detail a lot about how you have 2 older brothers. Dog is 10 years older than you, and I think your older brother's, 16 years older, I believe?
Yeah.
And they were a huge influence on you as a kid. Now, was it just the 3 of you, or did you have younger siblings too?
No, it was just the 3 of us. I'm the youngest.
You were the baby, right? You were the...
Yeah, it's called sladd, born in Swedish. It's like this... I think my mother famously said it's either a dog or one more kid. And I'm pretty happy that they decided not to get a dog,
Exactly. So those guys, clearly your brothers, were very influential on your early listening because you were hearing the stuff that they were playing. They were exposing you to stuff. Tell me a little bit about those influences in the 70s that were really instrumental. I mean, you've talked about some of these bands, but I'm kind of curious because, for me, I'm coming up in that same age. So Alice Cooper is huge. Kiss, of course, is massive. I mean, Kiss was the thing from 76 to 1980, and they were my very first show as well. And then I got into Rush. Yes was massive. I just picked this up a couple days ago. The 12-disc, crazy super deluxe box set. That was another huge fan. Talk to me a little bit. Yeah, I know I'm sick. I have to have physical media, which guys like you really appreciate. I know that. So tell me about those early influences and kind of how you feel that kind of informed your career path, maybe.
I would say that of course my older brothers are super crucial to the way that I kind of skipped almost a decade in my musicality compared to some kids that did not have any brothers who were that much older or parents or cousins or whatever. They kind of had to find all that stuff out on their own, and maybe they were more like into sports, and then eventually some cool guy in school played them something that was of the time. Right. But I had the luck there are photographs of me with headphones on since, I don't know, when is it okay to put headphones on a kid? I don't know, when they're 1 or something like that. Right. And I remember that my brothers told me that, there you're listening to the first Kiss album, and there you listen to a little bit later Sad Wings of Destiny from Judas Priest. And there are all these stories of how music was a little bit abstract, of course, when I was that young. I understood what it was, and I loved listening to it, but it also scared me sometimes, like really bad. And one of the most famous scared me things is there's a part in the song Genocide from Judas Priest where Rob Halford have this deep voice with this some kind of echo on it, sin of the sin I have endured, for the wounds I bear, or the wounds of love. And it sounded so fucking scary.
Evil.
And that was my earliest memory of being super scared of music. And I still to this day when I hear that whole part, it's still scary. I don't know what it was about it. It's completely scared me. And then of course you had the visual side of all those early hard rock albums. My brothers had to keep the first Uriah Heep album outside in the shed because I was so scared of the cover, you know, with the cobweb and all that stuff. And I think what's important is that it was always there, it was constantly there. And I would, my father would build me, instead of tennis rackets, he actually made me wood guitars and painted microphones on them and all that. And I would go into Dog's room and rock. Whatever he was listening to, he was lying in his bed, you know, looking at. I was just stand there and rock on my guitar. Of course, I held it the wrong way around, which devastated my father because he thought this looks wrong. You know, you're holding it wrong. I said, no, this is the way I hold the guitar. And I think it was around when I was probably, I don't know, 6, 7. That's when things really started to be a little bit more. I mean, my brothers played me stuff and they saw how I reacted to it. And I thought it was funny stuff. I thought it was scary. I thought it was epic or crazy. But until I really got to like have a music taste, I think my brother did all these mixtapes, especially for me, which was super important. It's like the cornerstone of my musical DNA. And that was all that he was into at the time. So around 80, 81, he was super much into progressive rock. The bands that were super out at the time, you know, and he just dived in with Genesis and Jess, Gentle Giant, King Crimson, all the big ones.
Yep.
And he went through a phase where he worshipped each one of them. And he made me mixtapes then of the not so progressive stuff. So like kid-friendly prog rock. So there were mixtapes with songs from the first Asia album. There were a lot of songs from Leftoverture from Kansas. There were songs from the band UK. Because they all have kind of a little bit of pop stuff, you know?
Yep.
And for some reason, there was nothing from Yes that I can remember on it because they did not really get that poppy until, you know, a little bit later. So it was all the band Genesis. You had Ripples. You had Firth of Fifth. You had all those tracks that were kind of normal also. One for the Vine is one of the tracks that I remember. And those mixtapes, I would listen to them non-stop for what felt like years, you know, all the time. That same tape just go. And then he made me another one. And then there was something new on that one that I discovered. There was some stuff from the Santana Marathon album, which is a little bit more so AOR.
More AOR, yeah.
Yeah, and all that stuff, Gentle Giant, I'm Turning Around from Missing Piece, and this kid-friendly prog stuff. And that is my childhood music. And of course, I listened to Kiss and Judas Priest, so by proxy, what you say, because they listened to it, I listened to it because we were like paper thin walls between me and my brothers. Hi-fi. And then I would say that I pretty much the first real big thing was when I found a big, I think it was a big bag of a Swedish magazine called Poster, which was this poster-sized magazine that had one poster of Kiss in every number that came out. And I mean, I loved Kiss. I loved the stuff that I heard as a kid, but I didn't really follow them, you know. Then I kind of lost them somewhere along the lines. And then I said, oh, they look so cool. So then I think it was in the summer of 83, I became, as a 10-year-old, a massive Kiss fan without really knowing more than I used to like the song Firehouse a lot, I remember as a kid. And then it was so, I'm now a Kiss fan, you know, and I just plastered the walls of the room in my summer house with all these Kiss posters.
Did you
And then
did you have the one of them on top of the world
Empire
World
State
Trade Center?
Building, yeah, it was
Yeah.
all the classic Fink
I had
Costello
all that
shots.
shit on my wall too.
Yeah, and then I was just like, I was on some kind of drug, and I know a lot of people my age, they kind of have the same thing, but they just kind of discovered Kiss. Like,
Yep.
you could also have discovered some other thing, like a sport or like a comic, but I discovered Kiss, and
Yep.
there's music also. And then my brother told me there was this one kid at our street. He said he might sell you some Kiss records, so he made sure that I got my hands on Alive 2 and Destroyer, and that just blew my mind. I just listened to them nonstop, and before I knew it, I had like a madman collected. I bought like all Kiss albums within a couple of weeks. Whatever happened, he's like, I need Kiss albums. I need Kiss albums.
Yeah. Did you,
and
just out of curiosity, do you remember the first Kiss song that you heard? And the reason I asked this is because Kiss was my very first concert, and I've told this story, but I don't think I've told it to you. I discovered Kiss, I believe it was in '76 with Rock and Roll Over, which was the very first rock album I bought with my own money. And I Want You. Oh, what happened there? Oh, I've got the fireworks going off. They like the Kiss thing there. And I remember, that album, just endlessly playing it and just loving Hard Luck Woman and I Want You and Baby Driver and of course Dr. Love. That was, I believe, where I came in. I had to go back, of course, to Dress to Kill, I believe, was my next one, and then and as it ended up, I had tickets to go see them in '77 for the first time. Would have been my very first show. I mouthed off to my mother. She tore the ticket up.
Oh.
And then she taped it together and gave it to the girl that lived next door that was a year younger than me. She got to see Kiss on my ticket, and I had to wait until 1979 to see them on Dynasty.
Oh,
so I'm just kind of curious, like, what your Kiss origin story is, and like, what was your first concert like relative to that, like my story?
The Kiss song that I know that I loved as a kid was Firehouse. And I was extremely young, and I just I love the riff. It's very simple, and this ooh yeah, and Firehouse, and there were sirens. It was all this. That was definitely the first one. And my first Kiss show was in 1983, and that was also my first ever concert with my brother. He took me on the Lick It Up tour with Helix as a support band.
83
and 83, yeah, September 83.
Yep.
And I must revise my story. I actually discovered Kiss in the summer of 1982 because I remembered that I got the
Creatures?
Or was it
the Creatures of the Night then, I think?
Or no, maybe it was 83, because I remember that we spent one Christmas in our summer house, which was extremely rare, and I remember getting Kiss stuff, but I was probably finding them in 83, and then we saw the concert, and then Kiss craziness just started way into 1984. I guess that's what I remember. Anyhow, I think the Kiss concert was, honestly, I was a little bit overwhelmed because there was no such thing as earplugs,
right?
And it was super loud.
Yep.
And it was so, we had good seats for Helix because we did not have placed seats, or what you would call it. We were just kind of somewhere. And then we just sat down, and by the time Kiss were supposed to start, two grumpy older men came. They were probably, I don't know, 25.
Oh no.
This is our seats, get the hell out of here. So we had to stand in the stairs somewhere really high up. And I remember they are so far away, and it's so loud. I don't hear which song it is. And
where were they playing in Sweden? Where were they playing?
Yeah, it's Johanneshov East Stadion. It's the classic place for every band there. And at one point, I got blinded by the light thing from Eric Carr's thing there, and all that was flashing everywhere. So it was one of those things that I was not so excited like I thought I would be. I mean, the bootleg shirt I bought in the parking lot was more of an excitement thing, that lasted longer than the actual show, because I remember endless noodling solos, and I said, the sound was horrible. Yeah, they all had fucking solos. Yeah. It was terrible.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was a cool first show. There's no denying it. It's cool to have been there, you know. And a Kiss is still to this very day something I hold extremely dear, and I read about their stuff all the time. I listen to podcasts about them, and I nerd out when someone wants. I can nerd out with the best of them, you know,
Yeah,
with Kiss knowledge and stuff. At least the stuff up until, I don't know, Animalize. Maybe it's not my where I can nerd out the most, but I know my Lick It Up pretty well, and all the stuff that
it's
came
kind of
earlier.
it's kind of funny, Dan. You know, I came into them in '76. Of course, went backwards, grabbed everything, and then went forwards. And then the solo albums came out, and I thought, oh, this is so cool. This is like the best, right? And that was, I believe, 1980. I'm pretty sure when those, or 79 or 80. And I got them all, and I really only liked Ace Frehley's. I didn't like Gene Simmons at all. Didn't like Peter Criss's at all. Paul's now in retrospect is pretty good, but at the time it was a little too radio poppy for me. And I dipped out like right at 1980. I had discovered Rush in 78, and everything was over at that point. Rush became, and we talked via email that Rush is they're my gods for, and will always be that way. But I was really getting into like Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush and Triumph and, you know, bands like that. So Kiss was kind of kids stuff, you know, for me. By the time I'm 14, I'm already thinking, you know, that's a kids band for me. And it's kind of funny because I don't know if you're familiar with the Prog Report YouTube channel. Do you know them?
No.
Really cool. They do a lot of progressive rock stuff. You'd probably like that channel quite a bit if you ever have time to check that stuff out. But they did a Kiss ranking with Jeff Wagner. Do you know Jeff Wagner?
Yeah, I know Jeff.
Okay, I figured you probably knew Jeff. He's a good buddy of mine too. And they did a Kiss ranking with, I think Eddie Trunk was on there as well. And you know, Eddie's like the Kiss guy of all Kiss guys. And I kind of was watching it, and I'm like, as I'm watching it, I'm checking out albums like Creatures and Asylum and Elder and stuff that I had just dipped out on a long time ago and never even was like, nah, I'm not into that. It's actually pretty good. There's actually some great stuff in there, man. Especially Creatures and Asylum. They're both great albums, man. So yeah, once you're in the Kiss fold, you kind of never get to leave, you know? It's just there with you. It's in your DNA. You were talking about the progressive stuff, and we're going to get to Moontower here in a sec, because it's kind of, I think, pretty important to talk about how that informed Moontower in a lot of ways, your influences. When we spoke via email, and then we actually talked about this, I think, in the first interview, not as extensively, but both you and I are Marillion heads. We both love Marillion. So that now we're into the early 80s. The Yeses and the Genesis. Genesis has now come over to mainstream radio at this point with Duke and Abacab and those albums. Yes is kind of doing 90125, and one of my very favorite Yes albums, I don't know how you feel about it, but Drama with the Buggles guys.
Yeah, it's really good. Definitely
I love that album.
Yeah, it's really good.
Probably my third favorite Yes album behind Relayer and Close to the Edge. But what starts to happen then for you as a young teenager? You're hitting 11, 12, 13, 14 during those early 80s periods. What starts to inform you? Is Dog still informing your listening, or have you now started to go out on your own and discover your own stuff with the neo-prog?
I would say that the neo-prog came extremely late. I was sticking to the old prog for a very long time, but I tended to listen to a lot of the stuff that the die-hard old school progs didn't approve of. I loved the Invisible Touch album from Genesis. I loved all this, the non-Gabriel stuff. I loved the Yes stuff, the 90125 or what it's called. All this, what I call post-prog, this when they were not really prog anymore and trying to get to a broader audience. That's I loved all that stuff when it became more AOR. I'm a huge fan of the first two Asia albums.
Oh my god!
And all that kind of stuff. So I actually was a little bit, without knowing anything really, I kind of hated all these new prog bands that guys talked about. I said, I don't care about this stuff. I listen to the original stuff. I listen to Genesis when I want to hear that. I don't need this new Genesis copying guys, including Marillion for a very long time.
Wow.
But I honestly never sat down and listened to it. I just heard what people said about some of the bands. Oh, they're ripping them off. And I think I don't need to bother. I'd rather listen to some other stuff. And I think by the time that there is this time when the 10-year-old age difference between me and Dog, he was always super helpful with me and my bands. He joined my band Ghost as a session guy and a producer, and he recorded and mixed our stuff. He was really in that. But once he got like into Frank Zappa and freeform jazz and all that stuff, that stuff was completely lost on me. I had no idea, And I guess at one point he got into the progressive rock, and then he also got out of it. He went through a huge David Bowie phase, and I kind of joined in there a little bit and found some really good stuff. And he just, went on his own trip. And that's around the time when I started to listen to stuff without his approval, but it was still kind of, I didn't have the guts to tell him that I heard something on radio. We had this radio show called Rockbox, which every hard rock musician of my generation, we listened to this like it was the most important thing ever. Once a week, I think sometimes it was like 2 times a week. We had a hard rock show called Hård Rock, and then we had Rockbox, and it was like crazy much, and they played all the latest stuff. And that's where at least I got to hear the really hard stuff for the first time. That was on Rockbox. But I do remember buying the first Wasp album when it came out, and that was not something Dog approved of. He thought they were super hilarious, but he was into some kind of, I don't know, more of like a jazz fusion kind of times, and I was just branching out on my own, trying to find the new Kiss. I mean, I was a massive Judas Priest fan, just like I had been a Kiss fan with only Kiss patches and Kiss buttons on my battle vest, the jeans jacket that had like stuff everywhere. It's like, no, Kiss is boring. Judas Priest is new stuff. So I just got rid of all the Kiss stuff, and I had a jacket with all Judas Priest things.
Wow. Are we talking
probably a name for that, a diagnose or whatever. But then it was all about Judas Priest, buying every record, knowing every song, knowing everything, and just totally geeking out on Judas Priest. And that lasted pretty long. I think it was somewhere between Turbo and Ram It Down that I gave up on Judas Priest. Then something else. Then I was an huge Iron Maiden fan for a minute. Bought everything. It was around the time that Summer in Time came out, and by then Dog did absolutely not approve of Iron Maiden and that stuff. Then it was like he was a bit out of the picture as a musical mentor at the time, around 86. I was on my own. I discovered this AOR stuff that I had, it was like, oh, this is where they got all that stuff from. You started to hear how the progressive rock bands like Asia, they were listening to some of the AOR stuff and got inspired and brought that back to their music, and vice versa. And I just became a massive fan of all kinds of AOR, and that's just, it's just one big melting pot of whatever makes me feel something. And that was just like, it could also be that I remember hearing some stuff on this Rockbox show, like the first time I heard At the Gallows End by Candlemass. That was a special occasion, and the first time you heard stuff, even though you didn't really like it, the first time I heard Whiplash by Metallica, or the first time I had Equinox from Sodom, or that sort of like, whoa, what is this? Wow, something wrong with the radio, or why is there a chainsaw in the music all of a sudden? And that was the guitar solo, and it's like, and I just like blew my mind, and that all happened when the 80s, like 83, 4, 5, and all the time I was in the band Ghost, and we were getting inspired by all that stuff, and it was just a big melting pot of of
Influences.
and inspirations and all the stuff just hitting you from every angle. And then later on, you listen to a radio show called Tracks, and then you got to hear what's in the pop music. You get to hear stuff that was super commercial, stuff like Depeche Mode and that kind of stuff, and also the Mötley Crüe, Shout at the Devil stuff, and it was just everything all at once. So I loved my AOR, I loved my progressive rock, I loved my hard rock, I loved my heavy metal, and then a little bit later on, also I would go even darker.
Well, I think that's a good nexus there to jump into Moontower, which was just released, or reissued, I should say, was just reissued on March 6th, I believe it came out. And I've got not just the double CD reissue, but of course I had to have the killer cool, I don't know what color this is, aquamarine blue vinyl reissue. And I believe this is the only second version of vinyl that's come out, right? There was one that came out in like 2016. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, that could be around the time. Yeah, I did one with Black Mark just a little bit before Boss passed away, and it never really felt like the perfect vinyl reissue, because I could never get a good resolution scan of the album cover. So there was a completely different cover, and it just felt a little bit like, okay, let's put it out on vinyl, and there was no budget for it or anything.
Like a rush job, yeah.
Yeah, this was this is the first LP release for me. I'm not saying the other one was a bootleg, but it had a little bit of that vibe, because there was no love in it. Just like, we need to release it. Are you interested in helping out? And I'm like, yeah, of course. But this time it was completely dedication to the whole process.
So when that originally came out it was recorded in 98, right? Correct?
Yeah.
And then released in I believe, was it January 1st of 99? It was like
it was supposed to come out in 1998, and
right.
I mean, when someone put a gun to my head and said, which year did Moontower come out, I would say 98, and then bang, because I had no idea that it came out in 99 until I think it was Leif Jensen from my record company, my A&R guy for this reissues. He said, yeah, but here it says it's January 99. I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess it was delayed then, because I made press for it, and I did promo trips and all that stuff as if it was out already. And that was all in 98. That was no way that was 99. So I guess it just got delayed. Maybe somewhere in the world it came out in 98, but I honestly don't know. But now it's out again, which is the most important thing.
and guys like me that were kind of fucking lame, I don't know how else to explain it, have only kind of just discovered, even though I've known about it probably for like we discussed before we went live, I think I've known about this album for at least 10 years or more, which means I'm only 20 years behind if I think about when I actually knew about it, right?
Yeah.
But what's crazy about this is, Dan, I put this on, and I kid you not, immediately my fucking face just went up in this giant smile. I'm like, where has this album been all my life? Oh, that's right. It's been around 30 years and you're only just checking it out, idiot. I immediately on the first track, Son of the Night, I'm like, oh, goddamn. Like, this is everything I love. The neo-proggy synths of Marillion. And let's be honest, Mark Kelly, I hear the Mark Kelly all over this album, whether you intended to do that or not. Just the Roland JP 8000 immediately, that it's there. I hear the Punch and Judy, it's that
yeah, of course
sound, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, it just is. I call it like I see it, and I think you already know that. You wouldn't deny that. But then it's got all the killer riffs and your incredible death vocals and just, it's super progressive, but it's super catchy, and it's all the things you're kind of known for as a musician and a mixer and master and just as a sonic sculptor. And I'm just listening to this, and I'll never forget, I called, and now I don't know if you looked at it, I doubt you did, but I sent you a link to the 2.5 hour Moontower deep dive that my friend Jimmy and I did 2 weeks ago, I think it was, where we break it down track by track and go, just super nerd fest. You know what I mean? And the thing that kept coming back to me, and as I told you, Opeth was kind of my gateway drug into death metal, because I'd heard some Cannibal, I'd heard some Death, I'd heard some Obituary a couple years before, but I kept going like to people who were trying to like pull me in. I'm like, dude, the music's fine, but those vocals fucking suck, man. They're awful. Like, I can't listen to that shit. I come from Steve Perry Journey and John Dokken. I can't listen to that fucking garbage. It happened. It took a little time. It took Steven Wilson to go, Jeff, you sent me a bunch of Frontline Assembly and Skinny Puppy, which I was really into in the mid 90s, or I'm sorry, in the late 90s, early 2000s. I got Steven into that techno industrial stuff. He then dragged me into the Opeth thing. And then the Opeth thing became like, here's what I was missing. So to go back to Moontower, and I swear I'll shut up. There is a question here. I'm listening to this album and I'm like, okay, this is like if Opeth, Rush, and Marillion, and maybe a little bit of Kansas and a little bit of Styx. I hear some Styx in there, Dan. I absolutely hear some Styx in there, particularly Grand Illusion. I'm listening to this album and I'm like, this is like everything that I just absolutely love and adore in music. I can't explain why I missed out on this. But what really kind of gripped me was this fever of, I got to figure out, and here's the question, I got to figure out whether Don's relationship to Michael Ockerfeldt, or Mikkel Ockerfeldt, we Americanize your name. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Because I hear everybody call you Don, and I'm like, no, but it's spelled Dan. Anyway, I started to try to figure out the nexus of who influenced who between you and Mike. And I think I was wrong, because I came to the conclusion that really you influenced Mike with the Edge of Sanity Crimson album. But I've heard you say afterwards, after I made that proclamation 2 weeks ago, I heard you talk to the Reaper Metal guys and go, no, it was kind of the other way around. So let's talk a little bit about, first of all, let's talk about, this is your one and only solo album to date, Moontower. It's a fucking 10 out of 10 mega banger. There's no denying that.
Thank you.
It's a fucking fact. But I do really want to know how the Opeth, because you did you produce those albums or just mix and master? Because they self-produced, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But you were involved in helping them make choices, I'm assuming, to some extent. Who and how do you feel that relationship with Mike, who's a brilliant musician, I think we both would agree he's just another level. How do you feel that kind of informed your songwriting, in particular maybe on this album a little bit? Because there's something in here I call the Opeth slides, the octave slides. And there's a lot of them. And there's a lot of those in particular, they start on My Arms, Your Hearse with Demon of the Fall, and then they get more pronounced on Still Life and obviously into Blackwater Park. There's a lot of what I call the Opeth octave slides here. Talk about that relationship and how you maybe feel it informed this. And also, last thing, I've read in your liner notes that you felt that you wanted to out Edge of Insanity once that relationship kind of split up. Talk about that as well, if you would.
Well, I think the whole thing about Mike is that we kind of we are somehow kindred spirits in the way that we grew up listening to the same kind of music. We are all almost the same age,
right?
And we are both a little bit. We love our what Mike used to refer to as cock rock and all that kind of stuff, and we both found, like, why did we all of a sudden like death metal and grindcore, and what the fuck happened there around a certain age? There was some kind of we needed some new kicks out of music. Everything became a little bit stale, you know. And I think what happened there with us was that we, I think it was the connection with the Catatonia guys, because Mike was helping Catatonia out as a live musician, and I worked with Catatonia the first time in the summer of 1992 when I recorded their first demo.
Right.
And then I worked with them again when I did the first album and this and that. So, and I remember that at one point I asked Anders, the guitar player from Catatonia, that how did you come on this idea to play with the echo pedal and all this, to have this? Yeah, it's Opeth, you know. He mentioned Opeth. I think, man, what's that, you know? And I had a vague memory of some guy that was in Opeth called David Isberg. He worked for the distributor of the Edge of Sanity stuff, and he mentioned that he was in a band called Opeth, and you should hear them, they are the best, and blah blah blah. And I thought, yeah, that's that guy's band. And okay, they were kind of somewhere in the back of my mind, they were a Stockholm band. Okay. But I was intrigued because up until that point nobody really played with the delay pedal in the way that Anders did with Catatonia. And I later kind of came to the conclusion that he kind of borrowed that,
ripped it
from Opeth. They were very influenced by Opeth, who was a rehearsing band at the time, and Catatonia just kind of got lucky, I guess, you know, and did the demo with me and got the record deal then pretty quick to release the mini album or the first album. I don't remember which one came first on CD, but it just kind of happened for them. And all of a sudden I got a call. I think I called her a letter maybe from Mike, and he booked studio time because they wanted me to record Orchid, you know, at my studio. And I do remember that Mike was this kind of guy. It's like a long lost friend. It's like I had known him my whole life.
Yeah.
After 15 minutes. It's not often that you meet. He was so humble and so cool, and we were so like-minded, like some weird lost twin brother thing, you know. And
I hear it. I see it. Yeah.
I met a lot of people in those days, you know. I had new bands of 3, 4, 5 people showing up. Sometimes, you know, recording sessions where a week was super long in those days. But
where were you located? Where were you located?
In Finspång, which is a 2-hour car drive from Stockholm.
Okay.
And Stockholm was full of cool studios, you know. So why the fuck they want to come and record in my moldy cellar without a toilet, without a window? But I guess they just knew what I had done with Catatonia, and they kind of were not. I guess no one was throwing money at them, and I mean. A week or 10 days at Unisound didn't cost that much money, so that was maybe also a factor. And I just remember when I the first time I talked to Mike, it was on the phone, and he mentioned also, we have some clean vocals, and I was like, oh no. Up until that point, you know, being a bit full of myself, I had done some clean vocals on Unorthodox, and I thought in my megalomania, I am the only real singer who also growled. You know, there's no one else stupid enough to be singing quite well, hitting notes and stuff, and growling. You either did growl and couldn't sing, or you sing and you did not growl. You know, that was just not happening. So I was oh no, that's gonna be so fucking terrible. And but by the time I did not hear anything. I didn't hear any pre-production, any demos or whatever. And we just started recording, and they did the drums together with the guitars and this and that. But I had never heard Mike sing, you know, and we did the first song, and he just started growling, and that was the best growls I had ever heard. They were so fucking powerful and dense, and had all the kind of crispiness and all the kind of distorted vibe that I liked in people like David Vincent or Chuck Schuldiner and John Tardy, like blended into one. And within the pause of just a breath, he started singing. Clean vocal, spot on. And, you know, I needed weeks between my growling and my clean vocals, you know, because my throat is so easily fucked up also in those days. And I was just like, what the fuck just happened? You
Yeah.
know, I expected
Yeah.
us to do the clean at another time. And that was when I realized that this is a new level. And I guess I was kind of having a little bit of a jealousy moment. I was
I
super
was just gonna
inspired by
ask.
Mike.
I was just gonna ask you that. Was there
Yeah.
a little bit of territorial feeling of like, fuck, this guy is as good as I am? Like, what the fuck, man? Right?
No, I felt he's way better than me
Oh
because
wow.
he's taking it. I could not do that kind of music at the time with Edge of Sanity because they were. I mean, I got as far as stuff like Twilight being a little bit so like. I could bring in some AOR moments secretly, and the melodies were not that sinister and evil. They were a little bit more traditional hard rock metal, even, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I had never heard the stuff that was on Orchid. There was no proper song structure. All the songs were like 15 minutes long, and they were just kind of parts melting together like progressive rock bands did, or Jean-Michel Jarre did, which is another thing that I discovered there around I think 85, 86. And I listened to a lot. So I just felt wow. And I know that there's been plenty of cases in music history where a band worked with a producer and they were super inspired and completely changed how they operated, or a band member joining, kind of taking over and taking the band in another direction, you know, or just a band hearing another band and just started copying that other band, losing completely their own identity. And somewhere there, you know, I was just like, after Orchid, I was just so blown away that I think I need to do my own Orchid. I need to bring all those progressive rock things that I grew up on, blend it with the death metal stuff that I've been doing, and create like my Equinox or my Oxygen from Jean-Michel Jarre, which was his one-track albums.
Oh yeah.
I need to make that. And I think
that Crimson? Is that what?
Yeah, that was Crimson then.
Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm.
And then what happened was that was a door that I opened that was like the progressive part melting together with the death stuff and all that. And like I say in the liner notes and all that, after the split with the Edge of Sanity guys, I was hell-bent on doing a really good death metal album. I was going to show them that the label was wrong about giving the name to the other guys. This is Edge of Sanity. This is what, you know, this is the follow-up to Infernal. This is the follow-up to all the Edge of Sanity albums. And it just kind of backfired because that first version of of Uncreation that you can find on the bonus CD from Moontower, it just did not turn out the way I thought it would be. It sounded okay, but it was nothing. It was just not how I wanted it to be. And I was missing Benny's drumming, and I was just, I don't know, it just sounded like my heart was not in it. And it wasn't. I was not really in it. I was still kind of suffering from the whole breakup thing with the Edge of Sanity stuff. And being the one guy doing like a solo death metal album, that just didn't happen. And, you know, it's a story that I've told many times about how I then ended up with Mike driving me home from a missed train in Stockholm. And he just kind of ended up staying with us in Örebro, where we lived at the time. And we just went down to the studio one day after work in the music shop that I worked at the time. And I had this studio, the home studio away from home called The Sanctuary. And we just went down and recorded one of his songs from the Sörskogen project called Mordet I grottan.
Yeah. And
I was
if
super...
if I could interject just a sec there. I'd heard about this track, and I'm going to be blunt with you. I only listened to it about a week ago, and I'm like, okay, what? Like, how did I miss this thing? And it's an early version of To Rid the Disease, which, you know, you can hear the repurposed melodies later for when he did Deliverance. But were you guys always just intending? Because I thought there was a couple of tracks that you were going to record and maybe create an album. Did that just never materialize because Opeth took off, or?
Yeah, there's been talk about. I mean, I know that Mike had done demos with a friend of his with a drum machine on his like Porter studio of more than one song. And I think he even played me some of them, and they were all really good stuff, you know, sung in Swedish. But Mordet i grottan was the one that I liked the most, and I kind of remember that one the most because of the lyrical content and the whole childhood vibe and the lyrics. It is still to this day a fantastic track. So I said, let's record that one. Let's have fun. Let's put towels on the drums and let's pretend it's 1972 and just do that full on, you know. And Mike was still years away from doing that Damnation album.
Yep.
Where he went with that kind of old 70s sound. Yep. And I honestly had never done that retro sound. I kind of knew how to do it, but I had never really properly tried. So that was also an experiment for me. And I remember to only go for the patches on my keyboards that could have been, you know, early 70s, like era, the Moogs and the Mellotrons and the electric pianos with a lot of vibrato and tremolo and stuff on it, and just trying to recreate that early 70s vibe with that warm, cool sound. And that was a great success for me and Mike. And I was so, like, I just loved how it sounded. And then I came up with this idea that maybe I should combine the sound of that track, like the tone of like 1972 or whatever that year, and try to make my death metal with that sound and try to make death metal like it was done in 1972.
And that's what you talk about.
I came pretty far, you know, but the problem is that the drum sound from 1972 is not really that far off from some death metal drums. They were also bone dry and not much epic reverbs and stuff on it. And it sounded kind of weird because no one would understand that I was aiming for that kind of drum sound. They would just think that I had a drum sound that was really dead. Yeah. And I think, that's not my kind of drum sound. I learned to play drums in a fucking bomb shelter in my friend's house. You know, used to have this like ping pong room / secretly bomb shelter because it was all like, you know, concrete thing, and it was echoing as fuck in there. And then the next rehearsal room was the bomb shelter at our school that was even bigger. So once you clapped your hands, it sounded like cannon going off, you know. And I played drums in there. So for me, drums sound like the intro from I Love It Loud. That's how drums sound. Everything else is like dry, you know. So
just a real quick interrupt. Just so I'm clear on this, because I think I am. You first started playing drums, correct? That was the first instrument you started playing?
Yeah, I am a drummer. You know, all the other stuff is just because I had to.
Okay, and then keyboards, I believe you stated that your mother could play, but she didn't play a lot. But was she an influence on you? There was a keyboard around the house. Was there a piano or something?
Yeah, there was I got my first keyboard when I was 6 or 7, an orange Bontempi, with the classic chord buttons to the left and then a smaller keyboard to the right. And that's the one I used in the band Fords. And I got my first drum kit. I think it was my 6th birthday or 7th birthday. I can't remember really. And that's, you know, because I was a drummer, I was always getting these toy drum kits and I would demolish them within the first day, you know, breaking all the heads. And then I also started to play organ because Dog played drums better than me. And so it was a combo. I could write songs on this, but I was a drummer. I still am, you know?
Okay.
And that was the thing that I felt that the drums need to sound like something that I can stand for, that is a little bit more current. And I was really into the drum sound from, you know, stuff like Counterparts from Rush and that kind of stuff. And I wanted to create a drum sound without any samples or triggers or anything, all acoustic, but still have that kind of modern, at the time, kind of big drum sound, but with real drums. And you had to do all kinds of trickery to make them to sound like they were, you know, I was in a kind of a big room, but it was not as big as I wanted it to. There's a ton of reverb and stuff on there. And but the guitars and the bass and the keyboards, I wanted them to be older. I wanted them to be more towards 70s sound. So I bought a jazz bass, and I made sure I had kind of a Getty tone from, late 70s, early 80s, slightly distorted, very compressed bass tone. And the guitar tone, try to have as little distortion as possible, but there's still plenty of distortion, but it's all like an old OD1 distortion pedal going into an old tube Marshall, a GCM 800 with an old vintage cab, and all this was all very anti-modern, trying to be as old school as I just could be. And I had an analog synthesizer from Novation called the Bass Station, and then I had the digital analog GP8000 from Roland, and all that kind of stuff. I just wanted it to sound old, and that was, for every album that I have done from around that time, I needed a kind of a muse, when it was just not enough to be inspired by, wow, someone is paying me money to make an album. Let's write a lot of songs. At one point, I need to know why I make another album. And by the time we got to Crimson, I needed that thing. I needed to not make another 10-song death metal album. I needed to make something different, because I had already then been writing songs since I was 7, and I was getting a little bit I need now more than just, I have to write a song. So I needed that spark. I needed that, what's different about this one? Why does this one need to exist? What justifies the existence of this album? And Moontower was this blend of 90s drum sound meets 70s the rest, plus growling. Right. And of course, to go back to this, there is an instrumental on there called Counterparts.
There you go.
Which is, of course, very inspired by Rush. But there's a part of it called A Tribute to the Orchids, which is Opeth,
That's the Opeth part. So, the acoustic part, right? Am I wrong? Really cool acoustic part that you kind of go into in the middle.
No, I think that's a Queensryche bit.
Okay.
And then there's the Rush bit. The Orchid bit goes, it's a kind of, as far as I remember it, and then
there we go.
With this 6/8, and right after that come the Rush part with the boing synthesizer.
So let me throw this at you real quick, because we are both Rush nerds, and you often mention in interviews that Stick It Out was a huge off the Counterparts album, and why you called the song End Counterparts. There's obviously the very first opening riff is very much an homage to YYZ, correct? Am I correct?
To be brutally honest, it's not.
What? Come on.
No.
God, come on.
No, it is not. It is an homage to the songs from the Lion's Cage by Arena, the first song.
I don't know that band.
No, but when you listen now after this interview to the first song on the first Arena album, you might think, isn't that even a little bit too much inspiration? Yeah. Because it goes something like Mellotron and back to, and it's also called Into the Arena. Hello, like obvious. It's not a Michael Schenker thing. It's
I was going to say it's not a
Michael
Schenker into the arena. But.
Because I must say that if you, apart from Marillion, which came a bit earlier, Arena is the first neo-prog band that I truly, really loved. And they inspired the first two songs from Lion's Cage and Pride. They inspired the hell out of me when I heard them the first time. Because Clive Nolan come from a completely different background. He's a classical composer kind of guy who just stumbled on some old Genesis when he was well into his late teens or even later. And then he's, this is a bit like Tchaikovsky meets Bach meets whatever. And he just started to write prog, but he did not have the baggage of all that other. And I thought, something is different about this thing. I know it's not Mick Pointer writing all these songs. Who is this guy, And it's turned out that Clive's a fucking genius, and And again, the song structure is very anti pop prog. It's bits and pieces. Just sometimes it's like massive part, another massive part, another massive part, song over. No repeating, nothing. And I'm just like so blown away. So they were a very, very big part. And you have your it's like written out. You have Arena, you have Opeth, you have Queensryche, you have Rush. And those are the really, really important parts, because there's no denying that Operation Mindcrime just inspired the hell out of me to go beyond the traditional thinking, but still have hooks and commercial and sing along and MTV hits or whatever they had, but still have this massive epicness about stuff. And honestly, I don't like Sweet Sister Mary that much. I like the epicness of the normal songs, like, Eyes of a Stranger, Don't Believe in Love, The Mission. Huge. They are such fantastic, short little mini operas of stuff that I love, And also in there is, of course, my love for the band, The Mission, kind of is a part of Queensryche, because somehow I think they also like TheMission. And
so like
this
Mission,
and that.
You're talking about the Mission UK, right? You're talking about the Mission UK.
Yeah, I don't know the other The Mission, so I only talk about. So one of my favorite bands is called FM, but in America they are FM UK because of the other FM from Canada. So that happens.
Yeah, the album what's it called? Wasteland or no? God's Own Medicine.
Yeah, man. But I love those. But for me it's the Carved in Sand album. That's the one that made me go fully
Amelia's
bananas.
One, right? Amelia's
on
that one. Yeah,
so amazing.
I love it. I saw them last year, the year before here, first time ever in the States that I saw them, and the Chameleons opened. Are you a fan of the Chameleons?
Never heard of them.
You got to check. Now it's time for you to check out a band. You got to check out the Chameleons. At the first 3 albums, you'll be blown away. I think you'll love them. And I hate to say, I was kind of bummed, but the Chameleons kind of kicked the Mission's ass. Although the Mission was great, they were amazing, and they did all their amazing hits. I didn't pick up on that influence on this album so much as you're saying, though. So I'll have to go back and kind of think about that and re-listen. I do own the Arena album, The Visitor. Haven't listened to it in a long time. So
there are some really good songs on that one too, but these kind of infatuations with a band for me, they kind of wear off.
Yes,
I can only keep it up for a good year or a year and a half, and sometimes when the band then
that is why do we?
I don't know. It's just a part of my how I am, it's a kind of my personality thing. I just cannot focus all my energy on one project for that much. Okay. It also, of course, involves also my own bands, True. Then it gets old, and I need a new kick, And it's just so that with Arena, it was so that I think that the first 2 albums were there already, and then kind of had to wait for The Visitor, and then it's just like okay. It was the same with Spock's Beard. The Kindness of Strangers is one of my top 10 of all time. And you could go back and buy Beware of Darkness and The Light and just kind of, wow. And then you had to wait for Day for Night. And by the time it came out, I was like,
you'd moved on.
So a little bit like the other ones. I like kind of that part, and you get kind of picky because you cannot just like go back when you're on that high. You just give me more,
Well, you know what
the same with Marillion also,
So you know what I think it might be? It might be you come to sort of it's an expectation thing, right? You're like, okay, the bar is set so high, and you're like, I expect. For example, like I know Season's End is your favorite, right? You had told me that's your favorite Marillion album.
Yeah, favorite album of any band ever. Yeah,
really? Wow. Okay, so what's crazy about that for me is that, I'm a Fish fanatic. I do love the H stuff, but it took me a while to get there because I picked up Script simply for the album artwork. I was like, this album's gonna rule. I just know it because the album artwork. I had read a little bit about them in Kerrang, but I didn't know what they sounded like at all. I heard the Genesis Gabriel comparisons, but I'm like, I'm just gonna grab it. That's my favorite album by them, but most would say that's probably their least favorite Fish album, maybe Fugazi. Everyone usually gravitates towards Misplaced, and I would say their best is probably clutching. But when Fish left, I was like, man, I can't do this. Nah, can't do it with a new singer. Can't do it. Not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. It took a long time, but when it did finally hit, Brave, Afraid of Sunlight, Marbles, and Season's End, for me, they're four masterpieces with H. And there's a lot of stuff in there that I didn't think I liked very much. Like you're wearing a shirt in here. I believe you're wearing a This Strange Engine shirt on the inside of this. I didn't like that album for a long time. And then I went back and listened to it maybe 2 years ago. I'm like, what was I thinking? This album's great, So it is kind of weird. We get this expectation thing, and then it's like the new shiny thing. We're like, oh, Squirrel over there, I got to chase that now. I'm done with those guys. I'm like that too, and that's why I asked that more as a rhetorical question. Like, why do we do that? Like,
I have no idea. And then you have some people who are, thankfully, there's people who is unlike you and me, that they stick to their bands.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they like the new album. They like the albums that no one cared about. They went to see them on that tour when 200 instead of 20,000 showed up. I don't know. I am music for me is have such an effect on me. It's so powerful that there are very, very few other things that can disappoint me, but also fill me with this joy, extreme emotion as much. I could laugh, I can cry, I get goosebumps the size of fucking basketballs all over my body from one little piece in one song on one album, and then nothing from the rest. And I'm just like, what happened there?
That's me.
What's going on there that doesn't happen on the rest of the album? And I have that a lot, that I am, I don't know, it's just my personality, I guess, growing up, passive smoking, sugar addict kid.
Yes,
I just have problem with the concentration on one thing for too long. And honestly, there are people who have told me throughout the years, if you only had focused on one thing. I said, we wouldn't be talking today, because that's
not
what brought me here, talking to you today, living the life I dreamt of living, is because I had like 600 different projects and did weird shit all the time. I am not that kind of guy to stick to this one thing. And I grew up doing that. I was in the band Ghost, and there was nothing like playing with other bands. We had little projects inside Ghost, the same members. We go to a rehearsal and say, today we are this band. No, today we are this band. And we would pretend to be another band, but it was still me and Anders, still the same guys. The idea of bringing in another guy, that was unthinkable, then I had to secretly sneak off to play thrash metal with a guy called Mikael Bolin that we met in the summer of '88. And I was like, I hope the other guys don't find out that it's like was being unfaithful to the massive thing that was Ghost, and then later Icarus. You don't have side projects, and growing up with that thinking that side projects are bad. Once I dipped my toe in this, and I had like so many real bands that I could barely rehearse with each of them on a weekday. And I had also side projects from every other real band. It was just a chaotic time. There around 1991, I was like in 9 bands or whatever at the same time.
And you were working a full-time job then yet, or not yet?
No, I was in school. I was in factory school that I didn't care about at all. I just went to factory school because you got paid. And they promised you a job once it was over. But then came the 1991 recession, and you didn't get a job, which was my luck,
Dan, I just want to address
then I started a studio.
I just want to address one thing. There are people asking questions in the live chat. Guys, I'll try to touch on them soon here. I don't want to keep Dan for hours and hours, but we're having a great chat here. So I want to circle back to this. One thing I did want to ask, and Lady Crimson 21495 says, is that maybe an ADHD thing? Now, I will admit, as a 60-year-old guy, I have ADHD terribly at this point in my life. And I never thought that I did, never took drugs for it or anything like that. But I am like you, Don. I do tend to stick to, like, even when Rush kind of put out some shitty albums, I'm like, all right, well, hey, they had that 8-album run from, from basically, for me, I love freaking Caress the Steel. Most people think that's dog shit, but I love that album. All the way up through probably, for me, the run up to Power Windows, with the earlier stuff being kind of okay. I would even go back to Fly By Night. But the point is that once I got to there, when come on now, Jeff, are you going to really blank out here? The Red Album, the one you love so much.
Hold Your Fire.
Hold Your Fire. When that came out, I was like, it's so synthy, man. Why are they?
That's what I love about it.
But I do love it
actually
now.
when you really deep dive, it's less than Power Windows.
It is. You're actually right.
It's one notch down.
Is.
Power Windows is so synthy that I love it. I love every second of it. I think sometimes, like, how did they mix Big Money? How is that song even mixed? It's like a nightmare. There's like things going on at all times. Everything is super loud. And when you don't think anything can be louder, there's like this big wink sound that is even louder than the loud stuff. But still you hear the drums, you hear everything. And it's like, hey, that was mixed in like, I don't know, 85?
Yep. That's Terry
or
Brown,
something like
man.
that. Of course, state of the art, everything, Peter Collins and all is super duper. But man, that is such an art. And I hope no one tried to remix that album. That must be a really hard task. Yeah.
Did you check out the Terry Brown remix of Grace yet? By chance?
No, I didn't.
Okay, it's interesting. They've dialed the keys back a lot.
Then I'm never gonna listen to it ever.
I don't know that you're gonna like it because it takes away the alienness of that album, and I love that album. That was the second time I saw them. The first time I saw them was February. I showed you the set list was for the Permanent Waves tour, and then I moved from where I lived in Texas back to Pennsylvania, and I wasn't driving yet, so it wasn't until Grace that I got to go see them, and then from that point forward, I saw them 2 to 4 times every year. I think I'm coming up. These 2 shows of the Reformation here in Philly, I will be, I think, hitting 38 and 39 shows. So it's a lot, but there's people out there that are crazier than me. But
that's fucking crazy.
Well, let's go back to this because we want to get back to your music here. But do you think there is a little bit of ADHD there with you in terms of
a little bit?
Okay, so
that's all I am, dude. I'm a walking poster boy for that stuff. But I got no diagnosis. But I think the doctors would just be laughing, and there's some other stuff coming from my father's side. He had also this insane focus on something, and then he could not think about doing that stuff ever again. He needed some outlet, and he was so happy. Don't you have a band with a cool logo that I could paint on a t-shirt for you? I'm like, yeah, you could do the Asia logo. And he was like, yep. And he upscaled it, did it with all the color changes and all that on a yellow shirt. And I was like, the coolest shirt ever. And then, do you have another? Yeah, you can.
Or paint?
No, he paint really with a fucking, he would do it was a college shirt. He would do it in a plastic bag and just leave the opening for the size of the logo. He would draw first the outline, and then he would sit with a brush and different paints and look at the original on the LP cover, and then just like spot on, super perfect. He could be one of those, fake art guys who do Mona Lisa. And no one would tell the difference. But I told him one time, like, why don't you do an album cover? I have no imagination. And I'm like, I need just to copy. I cannot just, this is now a lake. No, he need a photo, and then he could do it. So he did so much stuff. He did a big Moxie logo on my brother's jeans jacket on the back, and I was like, I want a Moxie logo too, And he did so many. He did a Sinner, the German metal band. He did a Sinner logo. He did an FM logo thing. He did for my brother also big Judas Priest. This old weird handwriting, not the Angular logo, the other one, the snarkly Set Wings of Destiny logo.
Okay,
and all that stuff. And it was he needed to focus on that. Yes. He needed focus. And I felt once you get into this, like, I need now to get everything by Marillion. I need to do everything. Join the fan club, buy every EP, every single, read every interview they ever made, in the time before the internet, by the web magazines, and it was a crazy time. It was a little bit longer than usual. But I was super obsessed. Even talked to Steve Hogarth, made an interview with him and all that. And then at just one point after this Strange Engine, they disappointed me so much with the album that came after that I just kind of, no, they broke up with me. I cannot handle you guys. This works not,
Have you gone back at all and revisited anything in the ensuing years after, like some of the more recent stuff?
Not a second.
At all. Okay.
No.
You just like, no, I'm done. Okay.
I'd rather listen. I mean, I don't have that much time left, so I'd rather listen to Season's End one more time.
I got you. I totally get you, man. That nostalgia thing. Your family sounds incredibly creative and sort of driven in that ADHD sort of way. Like, I got to conquer this and then moving on. That kind of thing, right? And I get that completely. To come back to this, one of the other things, to go back to the Opeth thing, had you messed around with EBOs before you did this? Because I can't remember from Crimson if you did much on there, or Spectral. Were you playing with EBOs? Because that is another sort of Opethian thing that really kind of, and not that the EBO was used by Bowie, by Robert Fripp a lot back then. You know what I mean? But I'm just wondering, was that kind of something that maybe you nicked a little bit in terms of utilizing it for this album?
I don't think Opeth used EBO in the times when I worked with them, and honestly, the border between what many people think is EBO on Heroes is actually only feedback. If you read up on that, you'll see. Yeah, Robert Fripp had tape on the floor for various notes that he could sustain forever, because it's all physics,
Well,
so when he stood exactly that far away, he got sustain on that one. So that's not an EBO. That's all real feedback. But anyway, he might have used EBO at other times, but especially the Heroes ones, they are actually, from the engineer. He told that story.
Okay, I did not actually know that.
Yeah.
I always thought
the first time I used an EBO was in 1997, when I moved down to the rehearsal room that became the Sanctuary. I shared it with a band called Moondog. There's a guy called Lars Uske, which was super important for the whole Moontower vibe, who's sadly no longer with us. He had an EBO. I think the original one, the first one that ever came out.
Yep.
He was a big Bowie fan. So he probably also bought in on the whole EBO thing and bought one. And that was the first time I could ever try an EBO. And then I eventually got to import one from somewhere that's called EBO. I still have it here in the studio.
Yeah, it's got the name on it.
I still have left. And I think Mike's EBO thing came on the albums after. And honestly, I mean, I listened a little bit to My Arms Are Hers once on a train ride, but I felt like this is not Opeth for me. This big barre chord, black metal-ish vibe, that's not Opeth. I had an Opeth thing like I had with the other bands. I love Orchid. I don't have a connection to Morning Rise at all. I don't know why. There is nothing about that record that I don't know. I just had that full-on fanboy craziness mode for Orchid. I know pretty much every second of that album. And even though I recorded and mixed Morning Rise, it just didn't make... I don't know. It never clicked with me.
That's one of my least favorite of their albums. I like songs on it, but like, for example... For me, Black Rose Immortal, Black Rose Immortal, it's very disjointed. It feels like songs that are kind of, for me, it feels a little bit pieced together, which might not.
Yeah, it probably is. They had to make a long song because that's what you do. They usually are, if they are done between albums. When you had a long song, like Grendel, for example, or in some cases, the mother of all, Supper's Ready, I feel that they grew more organically while the band were still at an early stage. And it could take time for this song to evolve, almost parallel to the career. And then that was used, but to have limited time to write, you either do it the way we did it with Crimson and just write the whole album in sequence during 24 hours, or you don't make a long song by piecing together 5 other songs with a bit of stuff in between. That
Right.
will not work as
Yeah.
a piece of art. It might work as something that looks cool on an album sleeve, but as a listening experience, it's and that is the case with Crimson too. It just doesn't have that flowy vibe because they were pieces from all over. You know, there were really old stuff and then not so old stuff all pieced together, and the tempo changes are more abrupt because it's to a click track. Crimson is without a click track. And I just felt that I found my way back to Opeth actually because of my wife. She was super into Ghost Reveries album, and I was just like, I don't listen to Opeth anymore. But she listened to it so much in the car that I just kind of like, this is actually really good. What's going on? What's different? And then I found out it's the fucking tuning. Mike developed this weird D minor chord tuning.
Yeah.
So he was not doing any stuff that he had done on the other albums in the same way. You did not have the same thing. And what I missed about the albums, I would say after Orchid, was this boogie vibe Opeth, like the twin harmony, that kind of stuff, you know.
The octave stuff,
and a lot, and by the time that the other albums came out, they were more streamlined. I was in another headspace, you know. I just, like any other band that I just get full into, it's a pretty short and intense time, and I bring something with me from that short intense time forever. It's kind of in my musical DNA. It's kind of ingrained in there, and it will be a source that I pull from when there's, you know, I don't really write music these days, but I did add new things to my musical DNA, and even if it was only one song by a band, that could be a DNA thing that I would use for, oh, this part will be inspired by that song by that band that I only like one song from. That's enough. That was all I needed, you know.
That's an interesting point, a segue there, because one of the things I hear in this album, in particular in one of the acoustic parts, not the I didn't write down the actual notes of what, you know, this part to that part, but were you ever a fan, or do you know the band Magnum?
Yeah, of course. Super fan.
So Tony Clark and Bob Catley, one of my favorite kind of proggy pomp, you know, radio friendly bands from the very late 70s into all through the 80s. And because I'll never forget, like, those guys along with Marillion, like when I heard Storytellers Night, I'm like, oh, this album is like, you know, this is the album. This, you know, I couldn't take that thing out of my record player. But there's a song, I want to say it might even be part of The Big Sleep, the acoustic part that has just that Tony Clark and kind of acoustic vibe. But I imagine that wasn't really what you were thinking when you were doing that, right?
I'm a big fan of the Vigilante album.
I love that album.
And the Wings of Heaven album have some good songs, and there are some really good songs on Storyteller's Night. But I honestly cannot remember being inspired by any other Magnum. The early stuff, I know my brother Dog, he loved the early stuff. And there's then, of course, later other Magnum. But yeah, but I never cared really much about that stuff for some reason. I don't know why. I just focused on this high gloss, super weird production, but kind of current, but kind of outdated of Vigilante and Wings of Heaven. No, this is a Magnum is probably somewhere, you know, I was probably
deep in, maybe
kind of listening to them, but around the time of Vigilante, I was a really big fan, and they were kind of, funny story, the reason why my band, or I should say our band, Unicorn, is called Unicorn is because of the Magnum album Vigilante.
The unicorn on the front. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, wow. we were called Icarus at the time.
Okay.
And we decided we're gonna go prog. And the singer quit, and we were gonna go full on prog, but we cannot be called Icarus anymore. So we would have to be called something else. And then the keyboard player Peter, he said, and I remember it like yesterday, we should be called Vigilante. Oh, it's kind of cool. You know, just like, and then he said the Swedish word for unicorn, which is Ian Herning.
Okay.
And no, Vigilante is not the English word for Ian Herning. Ian Herning in English is unicorn, and we all looked at each other. Unicorn.
That's
We're gonna be called unicorn. You know,
nothing
so it
froggier than unicorn, man.
yeah. So it's vigilante is more like some kind of he's looking after you kind of thing. You know, vigilant. You know, like so.
Right.
Vigilante is also a cool name, but out of the blue, I just needed to show off my English skills, and bam, we had the band name. You know,
I do want to. I'd love to have you back sometime in the future to talk about some of those more ancillary bands, but I kind of wanted to focus on this album and Witherscape, and maybe a little on Nightingale, real quick. Just to kind of wrap this up a little bit. When this came out, I guess from what I'm reading about it and what you've spoken about in the past, it didn't really perform maybe the way that you had hoped it would. Is that a wrong statement?
yeah, you can say that.
Understatement, perhaps. Understatement.
Yeah.
Which is baffling to me, because I'll tell you, I think this album is every bit as good as Blackwater Park or Still Life, that are contemporaneous albums, right? Because Still Life comes out in '99, same year as this, only later in October, and then Blackwater Park, which arguably Blackwater Park is the album that made Mike's career. Let's be honest. It's the one that, it's the deal, the big deal. I think this album is as good as that album any day of the week, and really should have catapulted you into that kind of realm. But were you at all touring? You weren't going to tour for this, right?
No, it was a solo album, and there was never even any talk about me doing anything. The label was not pushing for it or nothing. It was just something I needed to do. I think what Black Mark thought was, okay, let the guy make his goddamn solo album. The other guys make an album without him, and they get back together. And we gave, let the kids play,
Yeah.
And no, there was never any idea to
okay.
No one could. I mean, these days, maybe having Europe as my target for musicians, I could probably put together a lineup that could perform this in the way that I would enjoy hearing it on a stage. Meaning nobody play any note different than it's on the record, and nobody ever play wrong ever. And that means also I cannot be in the lineup because I'm a terrible live performer in the way of not fucking up or remembering stuff. And,
Really?
So it would be one of those Arion live things when I would just come on stage and say, hey, enjoy it, and go in the audience and listen to Moontower being played by, 6-7 other people. But that's never going to happen. So
let me ask you this, though. Let me throw something crazy at you. I think I know how you're going to answer this, though. Let's say, just throwing this out there, that either Maryland Death Fest or Wacken, let's do Wacken because, or Hellfest. They came to you and said, Dan, we really want you to be a headliner, and we want you to do the whole Moontower album. We'll pay for whatever musician you want to come in here, the best guitarist, the best keyboardist. Would you even think about that, number one? And number two, I guess I have to ask this question simply because I'm not sure, because I've seen statements by you that are somewhat, I guess, contradictory at times. Are you capable of doing the death growls still in a way that you feel confident or good with for like a one-off show like that? Could you do something like that?
No, I could never. But I mean, when they say that I would get so much money, which is again, never would happen. But if I could get so much money that I felt like, okay, let's do 6 months of fucking boot camp, growl every day, and get into shape like some fucking athlete who who get a good offer. It's probably physically possible, but I could never pull off. The few clean bits would not work, but they're only like 2, so they could maybe be sung by someone else. I think I could go on a stage with a lot of preparation. I mean, really boot camping myself, lung capacity and the whole fucking thing, vocal coaches and whatnot. And the kind of growling that I do on Moontower, I could probably pull it off. I could never do the Edge of Sanity style, never. This is just a style that my body forgot how to do. And I did the maceration vocals here 3-4 years ago, and it was pure hell. You know, it
Really?
was not funny.
Difficult.
That hour every day that I just fucking destroyed my vocal cords. But it was my farewell. You know, I wanted to have done one of those old school death metal Swedish style albums in full as a vocalist, and I did that. But to answer your question, Moontower could be, but I could not play anything. You know, at the same time, I would not dabble with any guitar or keyboard work because I could not even do the drumming. But yeah, so give me a couple of million, let's say 200,000 million euros, and I will do it. You know,
I'm going to work on that. I'm going to be your PR guy and get it done. Well, let me ask you this too. There's another thing I've read, maybe throughout the years, that you struggled quite a bit, and I ask this of a lot of the artists that I talk to. You know, my good friend Kelly from Atheist, we talk about it. He struggles a good bit with stage fright. Was that something for you too, I believe?
Yeah, absolutely. I am a drummer. I have nothing to do there at the center stage.
Yeah, you didn't want to be out
There's no place in the world for me. I'm not this natural born, oh, I'm here on the stage, look at me. I'm more like, I like to play drums, and sometimes I have to do it on stage in front of an audience, but let's hide here behind as many cymbals as you could probably have, so nobody see me. And whenever I feel like it to be seen, I could do some cool shit and stand up and whatever, you know, but it was an accident that I was the singer of Edge of Sanity. It was an accident that we took off. It was an accident that I had to play live with Nightingale and play guitar and sing. But those are all the accidents that led me to talking to you today. If I would have kind of not taken all those weird impulses and went with them, I would still be a local drummer somewhere in Sweden. You know, it's just I just play drums, you know, in a cover band and then go to work in a factory. Nothing wrong about that. But if I would have somehow planned differently, I would still, you know, be that drummer guy hiding behind everything. But I was pushed out into the front of the stage, and I was pushed out of a life where you didn't overthink every fucking scenario, what's going to happen, because that's my big problem. I'm an overthinker. I am never really in the moment. I'm all the time worrying about what's going to happen until the show is over. And then I start worrying what's going to happen on the way home. And did I bring all the cables? You know, I never just kind of live in the moment. And there are few snapshot moments when the show is a bit longer, you're in the mid, the sound is great, and you just kind of have a vibe. And you get, oh, I get it. This is what the guys say that you cannot replace when they stop touring. That's the feeling. I've had it like 5 times, you know, but because it was always this chaotic 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off. I have to remember the lyrics, have to remember to play, have to remember to this. I could never really be that guy who could find that pocket all the time, you know. So
you were always stressed, in other words.
Always stressed. Always thinking I don't belong here. I sing like shit. I play like shit. Is something going on? You know, what's going to happen now? Do I remember to push that button when the solo comes? Always stiff. Never giving the audience the vibe that I want to be here. You know, cannot look at the audience because maybe I see someone who seem like they don't like it, and then you know, no, that's just not me. So call it stage fright, call it social paranoia, call it whatever. That's just me. Unless I am a drummer, which I stopped being in most performing bands in like 1991, I think.
So you just mentioned it a while back. You said you're not writing. No. It was a conscious decision. I know that you got way more into the mix side of things. You came back to that because you had quit that for a while. And I know that you'd mentioned that Paul, friends of mine, and by the way, Larry and Vito say hi.
From, hi back.
November Doom. Great guys. Fantastic guys.
Awesome dudes. The best.
And Paul too. Wonderful.
Just he's the super best.
I can't wait to see them in May. I'm going to be seeing them in about 6 weeks. So
cool.
Down at Maryland Death Fest. But they kind of dragged you back in, kicking and screaming to remixing because you'd kind of walked away from that. But I guess my question here is, and I want to transition in a minute. We'll tie this one up, and then I want to transition. Are you cool with doing? Let me just double check here. Are you cool with doing about another 35, 40 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or is that pushing it? Okay. Because I do want to talk Witherscape and Nightfall briefly. Nightfall, which is, it was, I have a story on Nightfall. So when we get there, I have a story to tell you about that, about how the first Nightfall album I grabbed, I really didn't like at all. And I was wrong.
Nightingale, you mean? Not the
Nightingale.
Greek band Nightfall.
What did I say? Oh, I said Nightfall. I meant
Nightingale. Yeah.
Alive Again. I bought that sort of on a whim a couple years back, and I'm like, this is Swano? This ain't that great. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Mea culpa again. I was wrong. But we'll get to that in a minute. But what kind of, how do you want to tie this up in terms of what do you want to say about this that maybe we haven't said? I had it in my mind we'd break these tracks down one by one, but I don't know that that's really going to be beneficial. You do that in the booklet quite well. There's exceptionally good liner notes in here. You were taking notes from Fish, weren't you? Because Fish does that too, really well too. The reissue, do we need to talk about much on the second side other than, I will say, Off the Edge of Sanity, banger of a track, man. It's just an instrumental. It's an instrumental, but it's wicked as fuck, dude. The tower's really pretty. But what is there to say about this album that we haven't said that you'd like people to know about?
Well, I think it's pretty much covered, and I'm just super excited that it can come out at a time when people like yourself can listen to it and truly kind of discover it. And it's like it was released too soon, It was like the world was not really ready for it. I think it's so great and rewarding that the younger Dan can probably, get some credit back for this. And there's always been people telling me that Moontower is super, but not everyone was ready for this big mix of growling vocals and not really metal. The fact is that it's kind of heavy metal light in parts, progressive metal light, but it never gets.
At times.
Yeah, it's really you can replace my growls with kind of a James Labrie voice that I was aiming for, and it just didn't work. And you would have a pretty good progressive metal album, that was bordering on progressive rock at times, but the whole growl, and it's like. I've heard so many things what people felt that they were kind of expecting this one thing, and then when I started growling, it's just like you fucked it up basically. And I thought, oh, okay, but that was the thing. I felt like this needed this dirty, ugly thing there on top of this other, and that was for me coming from both worlds. I needed to combine them for me at the time, and I just felt that growling. And giving it that darkness, that was something that I needed, but I didn't need the music to do it as well. I didn't need to do this slow black metal, all is evil vibe. I needed it to be a combination of my two worlds, the progressive hard rock heavy metal thing and the growl. I mean, that's really all there is from the death metal world is the growling vocal. I mean, the vocal patterns and all that stuff is pretty catchy, Yep.
It really is. And
I think, but people should just check it out and listen to it and enjoy it for what it is. And if they have the time, they should check out the CD reissue. I will be releasing a video that I did where I am going through the booklet, reading the liner notes and showing a lot of photographs and a lot of weird stuff. For the ones that just feel, nah, CD is not for me. Because I feel that the liner notes and the stories are worth hearing, even if you don't care. Because the CD2 will never be available on streaming. That's all physical media for various reasons. But I will release this video in a bit and kind of remind people that it's maybe on its 1 month anniversary of being released again or something like that. So,
well, hopefully when we finish here, you'll feel comfortable enough to want to share this interview, because I think we're doing a lot of justice to the album and your career in general. But I
I think I shared it already before we started.
Okay,
so.
I think the one thing people have to realize about this album is it's really it's a love letter to all of your influences in a way that is not copying anything. Yet if you're a music nerd and you're a fucking weirdo like I am, and I love being this weirdo, I'm not apologizing to anybody about being this weirdo. When I listen to this album, I'm giddy like a kid. We were talking about how music makes us feel and the emotions that we feel. I listen to this album, I'm like, oh, there's that part, and there's that part, and there's that band's part, and but none of them are like direct copies. We didn't mention Dream Theater, and I don't know how much of a Dream Theater fan you are, but I hear some Dream Theater in this album at junctures of time. Early Dream Theater, more like the Awake period and the Images and Words period. But there's so many, I guess you'd call them Easter eggs, maybe is a good way of putting it.
It could be, yeah.
In this album that are, they're not derivative, yet if you're a music fan, you're going to go, oh, wow, this appeals to me right away. You almost can't not love it. And as I said, I've apologized profusely to my good friends who were bugging me about this. And it's funny, they're all like, dude, you're like the oldest guy amongst our crew. And you've been around the longest and listened to music the longest. And yet you didn't listen to this album, you idiot. It's like,
yeah, but maybe it was because of that. Maybe I know that sometimes it's an age thing, and that's not meant in a negative way also. But you are just at a stage in your life when you are maybe not so open for. I know I had a lot of, there were friends. They were like, no, I don't listen to hard rock for a couple of years now. I'm more into this and that fusion, blah blah blah. And the next time you meet them, they're wearing like a Judas Priest t-shirt. I'm like, what happened to you? Yeah, I got back to my roots. I get out of this jazz phase I was in, and sometimes a certain style, it's just you're just not you cannot receive that kind of stuff because when I was into, I was quite a weird story actually. Was some big magazine here in Germany, they asked if they could do an interview with me about the death metal year of 1991, and I was like, yeah, why not? Any press is good press. And I just started looking at albums released in 1991. I was like, I didn't own any of them.
Wow.
Maybe that one, because I didn't really care about death metal in 1991.
You were out
How
of it.
weird it may sound, but I was so up in my own world that I could think maybe there was like a Vital Remains EP that I bought, maybe, but all the other stuff happened in 90. That was my thing. That's when all the stuff I bought, all the stuff, that's when everything happened, all the milestones. Everything that bands released in 91 was for me, that was like the second album of this, and that was that album by them. I didn't care about any of them. They had zero influence on me and my life and my writing. And so I was like, I'm sorry, I cannot really say much about it. But of course, my band, Edge of Sanity, or our band, we released our first album. So I knew what the world was like. I was there in it, living it, promoting it. But it didn't have any effect on me. For me, that was the big death metal year for me. That was definitely 89, 90. That was like the mega period,
Sure. Well, that's when it.
So sometimes it's just you're not there, for this. It's over. I'm out. So when someone told you about, there's this weird Swedish guy who's growling on kind of Rush meets Marillion, you thought that's a fucked up idea, and that's that.
It is kind of a fucked up idea. Let's be honest. But you know what I think it was, Dan? I don't think it was that. I think I know what it was. I think I learned about you via the Opeth connection initially, being the producer guy or the engineer guy. You were the engineer, but you were kind of in that role. And then the next phase was Bloodbath, which I didn't really realize until I went back and I was like, oh, he was way more involved in that than I realized. Like, I don't think I just knew it was kind of this super group, right? It was Michael, it was Anders, it was Jonas, and you, but I honestly thought you just, I hate to admit this, till I went looking the last couple of days, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, he was actually in the fucking band. He actually
started it.
Carnage. I know. So that's the whole thing. Like, there's a weird thing with you as an artist that I was I had separated you as an artist, as a creative force, from you as the mixer guy, the
Which is super.
sound.
That's what you should do also, you know.
Yeah, and so what happened there was that when I did check out Edge of Sanity, I think I checked out the first Edge of Sanity I checked out might have been, believe it or not, it might have been the original Crimson 2, or it might have been the one after it, which is what, Cryptic, right? No,
Yeah, I'm not even on it.
yeah, you're not even on it, right? And that's why I may have been like, this band's not all that great. They're just kind of, and that's not a, if any of the guys watch this and go, fuck that guy, I mean, no, I just don't really like that album. I'm gonna pick it up to have all the remasters and reissues, but it's not. It's kind of a grunge album, death metal album to me, and it wasn't what I was into. I think what happened with you was I separated you into two life forms, and the one that was the creative writer, musician, multi-band guy, which also might be another problem, to be honest with you. You had so much going on that I'm like, where the fuck do I even start with this guy? Like,
That's
where,
true.
where do I go first? And that
Yeah.
goes back to what you said earlier, that I just kept going, I'll get to that. I'll get to that. I'll get to that. I finally got to it.
That's wonderful.
And so in getting to it, let's talk about these quick, because I don't want to keep you all day. Your wife's probably pissed off. These I didn't even really know about until my friend Jimmy again said to me, dude, the way you love Moontower, you got to get this album. You just cannot not get this album. I'm like, I've heard the name, but I didn't really know much about it. You got to get this album. I got these albums. Dude, this fucking album is, wow. This is an amazing, I hope it's not your swan song the way you're kind of talking. It seems like it might be. But goddamn, dude, this fucking album is sick. It is so incredibly good. It's right there. It's vying for this one in my playtime. I went on a huge hike 2 days ago. I listened to this 3 times. I just didn't take it out of the CD player. I had lots of other stuff with me, but I'm like, yeah, no, we're just going to keep rolling with this one, man. This is the one.
That's a good one. That's a good review. That's the best anyone can say, that you should leave them wanting more. And there's something good about the return of the LP. Is that people had an actual problem with this 84-minute albums, but the vinyl, So keep it around, so 40, 45. And since my attention span is that at maximum, for listening to an album, that's also what I like to create, and.
Well, so how did this whole project come together with Dag? Like, what was the impetus of it, and why? Why? Because you'd kind of been out of record. I guess you did some Nightingale stuff. What was 2014? Was Nightingale the last Retribution album?
So you're sorry, you talk about Witherscape, right?
I'm talking about Witherscape. Yeah, this was.
Yeah, that's Ragnar. That's not Dog.
Oh, Ragnar. I'm sorry, I said Dag. I meant Ragnar.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad.
Yeah. Well, it's a long story, but I can try to narrow it down a little bit. I was working in a music shop after I gave up on the whole let's be a rock star or let's be a producer mixing star. Right. And was pretty happy there. I did some stuff on the side, mixing and mastering. So for dudes like November's Doom and a little bit on the side. And one day a guy with an enormous mustache showed up in the shop. And his name was Ragnar. He's just moved to town, and I thought that's a really cool dude. I don't know, something about him. It's like a Mike Åkerfeldt vibe, like
felt that kindred spirit thing.
Yeah, he loved prog, he loved weird stuff, he loved death metal as much as he liked other. He was just like, and he was a terrific guitar player, awesome bass player, terrific drummer, and I bet my ass he could sing when he tried. And I thought, that's an interesting guy. And then I heard that. He'd been joining friends of mine or customers of mine that had musical projects. He was in bands with them. I said, this Ragnar guy, he's such a dynamo with the riff writing. He's a Judas Priest fan. He was in a Judas Priest tribute band called Swedish Steel. And I was like, hell yeah. And we could nerd out on the Judas Priest ballads from Sin After Sin or whatever, And out of the blue, I just felt, I want to write another Moontower album. That was the idea, And a friend of mine told me that you had this riffs. There's like a riff CD that this guy Ronnie I know, that he could pick ideas from it. Could I listen? What you have, because he was he was in bands all the time, but he never really got anywhere with anything. But he wrote awesome stuff, and I mean,
Yeah.
isn't that the best find ever? It's like, so you're
Yes.
saying you have like 50 awesome riffs that's in no song ever. Okay, let me have a listen. And a lot of those ideas ended up on the first Witherscape album, combined, which was never ended up on the second Moontower-ish album, because I felt like I'd rather have a project with this Ragnar guy, and we call it Witherscape, and I start from scratch again. We go rehearsing together on Tuesdays at 11 o'clock. We drink coffee, we talk shit, and then him and me, I'm behind the drum kit, he's on the guitar. It's cranked, it's loud, and I mean, I bought, drum stuff again, cymbals, a snare, a fucking drum chair. I bought a giant ass 24-inch China cymbal, like the one that Simon Phillips used on Sin After Sin. All that kind of stuff. I went like a little teenage again, some kind of.
So you were excited. You were excited.
Some kind of crisis where people buy Porsches or whatever. I got back into having a band again, but it was this duo dynamic, and sometimes it's the best, it's faster. You don't have to teach another guy your weird ideas. And Ragnar learned everything extremely quickly, and he was such a great player. So it was just this kind of vibe there that we must do an album together. And we did. We did the Inheritance, and luckily it got picked up by Century Media. And they released that one. And everything was just like, wow, super. And I expected everyone, with open arms, like, oh, you're that guy from, Edge of Sanity. Here are tour offers. Here are like, the world needs you. And nothing happened. Nobody offered us fucking anything. And I said, yeah, but that's the world. I am this kind of guy who expect to create a thing, like a product or whatever. And then I put this in one shop, make no advertising, and I expect it to sell millions. But that's not how it works.
No.
It did work for me by a mistake sometimes, that I made a demo. It found its way to a label. They say, oh, here's a record deal. Bam. You made an album, and that album kind of made waves. And then, it was so easy that time. Why can it not be so easy all the time? Yeah, well, it's not. The world is a very different place now when you try to release like a progressive metal album with growls and clean vocals all mixed up like it is on the Witherscape,
Well,
and
Dan,
it just didn't happen.
I think, though, you know this better than anyone. The internet has created a much smaller world, so that everything is out there, but it's also kind of killed the record industry in many ways, which is not a bad thing in some respects. However, I think that it's also created a situation where there's too much. Sometimes it's just too much. And it's like the 24/7 news coming at you, where, we live in, I don't want to get political, but we live in a country now where things are really fucked up, and you're just constantly bombarded with it, and you just want to shut down. You just want to shut it out. I gather it is kind of hard to believe that this project, now granted, it's 15 years old now, I believe, right? Is that about right?
Could be.
2013 and 2016. So yeah, 10 years and 12 years. It is kind of hard to believe, because this, to me, there is a lot of bands out there that are kind of aping this sort of kind of thing in a lot of ways. This album is like the best Dream Theater album with Death Growls that they never made for me. The playing and Ragnar's playing is very reminiscent of John Petrucci, especially his soloing. Like, he just has that lyrical, glissando, beautiful way of playing solos. The keyboards are kind of Jordan Rudess, or really, to be honest with you, they're a little bit more, for me, they're more reminiscent of Kevin Moore, because they're more earthy and cool. They're not the thing that got to me about. I was a big Dream Theater guy. Saw him back on Images and Words. Was a huge prog metal guy, but by train of thought, I was like, "Fuck, man, I can't take the keyboard chasing the guitar solo and the widdly wanky shit.
That's true.
Judas Rudess, and I know Jordan Rudess. He's a great guy, a really wonderful guy. But I couldn't take his keyboard sounds. It was all Mickey Mouse bullshit anymore. It didn't sound like the 70s and the 80s stuff that I wanted to hear. This is like I said, this is kind of like the Killer Dream Theater album with your vocals both. You really have like 3 different voices on this because you've got like a really beautiful clean that's in the mic range, and then you've got your death growl that's right up there with Mike's as being one of the best ever for me. But then you got you got this kind of bluesy thing that I don't.
That's the throat killer, I call it. That's what definitely damaged my vocal cords for all of eternity, was me singing. I call it my Dio voice.
Yeah,
it's a really hard. You can only sing. It's so much power that goes into singing that stuff. It's like when you would scream at someone, that's silent in comparison, and you still have to keep it kind of in melody. And then I had to double the whole fucking thing. So I had to sing like every line, I don't know, 20, 25 times to get a good take. And then you double it, and then you do it all over a whole album, So I was, after that vocal session was done, I just felt that something was wrong with my throat. And I just went into some kind of vocal stasis there for a bit. I can't sing. This is something is seriously wrong, and I still suffer from it today. That I get hoarse extremely fast, and
did you get looked at? Did you get looked at?
No, I'm too scared of it. Having people looking with, I just say I stop sing. It's easier. That's my mentality.
I'll tell you what though, man. I would make a posit. I would posit this because I've got a similar situation. I sang lead vocals. I have a Lane Staley type vocal. It's kind of that throaty, gravelly, what you think of with Lane. But I used to be able to think of Jeff Tate on I Will Remember. I used to be able to get those highs.
Yeah.
And then I had an autonomic nervous system situation happen, and they think it's like a vagus nerve thing, which is it runs from your brain down through your heart down into your gut. And I have that hoarseness now. I could never ever try to do a death metal vocal. It would shred me entirely. But I can't get that Jeff Buckley high that I used to, the Jeff Tate high ever again. So if you ever think you want to have it looked at, ask them to look at your vagus nerve, because you may have a vagal nerve issue that's going on there that may have been
I fucked my body up. So during the recording of the Northern Sanctuary, it was crazy. It was, I don't know. I was obsessed by that album, but it was fucking crazy. And it's sometimes the combination of growling and doubling the growling, sometimes up to like 5 times, and then doing the cleansing, and all with the time pressure of I have to do it now because I have a mix waiting, and then I was all the time this chaos, and it just fucked me up. And I don't honestly, I'm happy where I am, and I'm begin to do some singing again. And of course, it's heartbreaking to see how the relationship between what you think you sing and what you actually sang when you listen back to it is fucking insane. How you can sing so out of tune when you think you sing in tune. It's crazy. But luckily, there's Melodyne, and I can fix shit pretty transparently. And I sing like 10, 15 lines of the same thing in a loop, and then I just cut out the best words and put them in one take, and I Melodyne the fuck out of that one. And in the end, it sounds like me on a good day. But I have to be careful because my voice gets shut. The higher I go in the register, if I have maybe, 25 minutes, then it's finito. I have to wait a couple of days. And but honestly, I see it in this way, that my career is just, I am a mixing and mastering guy, and I might do the occasional singing like I did on my brother's new solo thing. I sing this Start with the Spectrum track on this new Dan Swanö album. And it's worth checking out because it's the latest thing that I sing, and it sounds pretty cool. I'm happy with it. Me singing in Swedish is a little bit strange. I haven't done that much. I might. I'm booked for some guest appearance with some project now. I will sing a song for them. I don't remember their name even, but it will be cool. And but as far as songwriting and all that stuff, it's just not in the cards for me. I cannot spend any time during my 40-hour work week that does not generate a certain amount of money, or it's bad for business. So that's the problem with the record industry. Cutting your budgets, you cannot take a week off and kind of get paid a good hourly rate, because of course I would spend that week obsessing over like 6 notes rather than write and record a whole fucking album like I did with the Breathing Shadow, or the Closing Chronicles.
Right. So in other words, what I hear you saying is you're perfectly fine with where you're at this point now.
Yeah,
with your career.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I did want to touch on this, and then we'll go through a couple quick questions from the crowd, and then I'll get you out of here. So I did tell you that I bought Alive Again when the Edge of Sanity stuff started popping out, and I'm like, I need to get all those. I just need to do it. And I do. I've got them all. Ugh. I got them all here. Like I said, Mr. Swano, I've spent a lot of money on you lately.
That's wonderful. There's like 19 or some like 20 reissues, and then you have all the versions. And there's this wonderful guy in America called Alan Thompson. He buy everything I do in every possible version, and sometimes multiple versions. One to keep, and one to open and to listen to. And then that color and the CD, and it's
that's
like
a little overkill for me. I don't. Go
but
that
that's
far.
so.
However,
he must have. I mean, poor bank account for this reissue campaign. I've seen the. I can order things. Some of it, I would say that 85% of it is still in stock over at Sony, and I can order stuff, and it's just endless scrolling. Black, and then there's red, and there's this red, and then that one. It's like. Wow, that's a lot of fucking albums, in difficult format, but
just so you know, I picked up Spectral Sorrows, which weirdly is probably my favorite Edge of Sanity because it's so fucking weird. I just dig it because it's a weird album. I picked up Crimson on vinyl, Spectral on vinyl, and the CDs, and then I picked up Crimson 2 on vinyl. And we won't get into the Crimson 2 thing. Maybe sometime in the future we can just focus on that one day. But this was a band, though, like I said, I picked up Alive Again a year and a half ago, right around when the first reissue started coming out. Just grabbed it on eBay for like $6. I'm like, I gotta check this band out. And I looked on Rate Your Music. I don't know if you ever see it. It's a database of people that go on and put their own reviews. And I read the reviews, and it's like, this is the best thing by Nightingale, blah, blah, blah. I got it in. I guess I wasn't in the right headspace because I threw it in. I'm like, it's probably not for me. Well, digging back into the Moontower, my buddy's like, dude, you got to at least check out the first Nightingale album because he knows I love Sisters of Mercy. Got to remember, Sisters of Mercy, Mission UK, all those bands that are happening in the 80s. I'm just graduating high school in 84, 85, 86, 87. That's the shit I'm hearing in the clubs when I'm going out drinking, because I'm 21 and 87, 86, 87. And I love goth. I fucking love goth music.
Maybe worth mentioning, sorry to interrupt you, but there is this bonus track on the Moontower, Lucretia from Sisters of Mercy.
Of course.
Yeah, there you have your connection, that's a little bit of the goth.
You and Warrell Dane did the best versions of that. Yeah. Have you heard Warrell's? You've heard that, right?
Yeah, but it was so weird I didn't understand it was Lucretia.
Really?
No, I had no idea.
Warrell always did weirdify shit.
It's super weird.
I'm sure you've heard their version of Sound of Silence, Nevermore's version. It doesn't sound anything like the song.
No,
like,
but it's fine,
But here's what's trippy about this band. This was predominantly just you, right? Was your brother involved at all?
With Nightingale?
On the first album.
No, that's only me. The Breathing Shadow is all me.
Right. And again, it's kind of a love letter to your goth loves at the time. The sisters, the Fields of Nephilim without the spaghetti western stuff, but the darkness, the Carl McCoy kind of gravelly, like down there low, which I love. Fields of Nephilim.
I have never heard a single song from the Fields of Nephilim. So, but it's kind of all in there. I think they all come from the same source. And they all interpreted this differently. I was more into one or two songs from Sisters, a whole bunch of songs from The Mission, and one song from Rosetta Stone. And that was it. That was my base for goth. Trying to write the next Leave Me for Dead with Rosetta Stone, and then that became boring. And then I just said, oh wait, let's write some other stuff. And if you listen to that album from the beginning to the end,
I love it.
And you could read the liner notes of how I am kind of day drunk when I show up at the studio and just write Nightfall Overture instead of writing a goth song. I write a fucking prog metal epic. That's still one of the best songs I've ever written.
Dude, that song rules. I
in like 20 minutes. It's like so crazy.
I love the guitar effects you're using on it. And what were you using? Do you remember back then? All the really that awesome saturated 80s trippy delay sound. What were you using? Were you using a rack for that or a pedal or what were you doing?
No. It was a guitar I bought from Mikael Åkerfeldt. A brown Yamaha RGX something. And that went into a metal zone with the mid-range, so around 800 hertz cranked all the way up, into a half rack Boss delay that I also used in the studio as my delay. But I used it there as a guitar pedal. So you couldn't really turn it off. It was like a rack mount, half rack gray thing. You can find it on Reverb for like $50 or something.
Are you talking
into
about
a power amp?
You talking about the black and orange metal zone?
Yeah.
The Boss pedal?
Yeah.
That's what that is?
Yeah, that's a full crank, trying to make it sound as nasal as possible by a mistake, because the monitoring at the studio was terrible. So I thought it sounded pretty good, but when I heard it in the mastering, I almost committed suicide because it sounded so fucking weird. But that's another story. And then it went into a power amp, into a vintage Marshall cab, and recorded with the delays. It's not, I mean, it's all coming out of there. And I was so inspired by the sound because for some reason it brought out that melody note thing. It was not a very power chord friendly sound with all the delays. I ended up playing more single string melody stuff that sounded so atmospheric. And when you doubled it, it was like, man, this is like Stephen Rothery on fucking I don't know what, on acid, on steroids. Wow. And and then you had the computer bass going in the background. That was one foot in the goth, was this dong 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 dong. Like also some of the 80s hard rock bands. You started with the synth bass, to give it more of that the Flappard Hysteria kind of vibe to it. That I don't know, it's easier to hear the notes somehow. Then I didn't want to play bass because it's boring to play so tight. And on the bonus CD, on both, I think especially on the Brigand Shadow, I am playing bass on half the album as the remix because I lost the other half. And then I actually played bass, and to play like a fucking robot, because I wanted it to be like the song Belief on Carved in Sand by The Mission, which is one of the DNA cornerstones from the whole Nightingale, the first album, together with The Night Comes Down from Judas Priest, from Defenders of the Faith, which is the other DNA building block. These two songs together, bam, you have The Breathing Shadow, plus a bit of goth. And then you have this boom, 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 boom. The bassist play this one, I think it's an open A string, for the whole verse for like a minute. And I wanted that sound, but it's so hard when you're not really a good bass player and you're used to playing in the pocket of something that is not human. It's fucking impossible. So I thought, let's program the fucking bass, It's easier in the Atari, that click, 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 bass is ready. And then I tried to play really on a bass, and man, there was a lot of editing before I sounded somewhat decent. But I wanted to have the real bass as a thing on the remix rather than the computerized stuff.
Real quick question on these, because I've not gotten to the bonus disc because they just came in 3 or 4 days ago. On the remix for this, and these are the other two that I got, which, by the way, we changed directions pretty definitively when we moved to these next two albums here and Alive Again, which that's as far as I've got. I got to pick the other ones up. Are you saying that did you replace the drum programming on here with real drums, or no? Is it still the drum programming?
the songs that I have, you will be very, very surprised when you hear the remixes.
Okay.
Because when there are real drums, they are still there, sounding better.
Mm-hmm.
But if a song had a drum machine on it, the song is completely redone.
Oh, it's
and sometimes I have
redone.
it's like I had so much fun with these remixes that it's probably the most fun I had during the whole reissue campaign, because they're reinterpreted. I think the word is that a song like Dream Reader is all piano and vocals, no other instrument. And Higher Than the Sky sounds like something pretty much like Odyssey could have done, one of my other projects, completely metalized. Nightfall Overture sounds a little bit raw in the way that it doesn't have any keyboards on it except the piano. It's all guitars, bass. It's like a trio version of the original version.
So it's a real different version. It's
super different. They're like completely. And one of them sound like something that New Order could have done when they were like sound a bit like Rush synthy, like so. Lives to think that the day would that kind of era. Did you do that
with this as well? Did you change this one up on the remix as well?
Which one?
The Closing Chronicles.
Yeah, the Closing Chronicles have some stuff on it. We did the final version of the track Alive Again is there, which is a combination of the song Alive Again from the Closing Chronicles and the Recollections song, which is the first track on Alive Again, is now brought back in time and put together as one gigantic Alive Again song, because the original version stopped after the first chorus. There is no second chorus. Then we just go on jamming for like 5 minutes with me lying on the floor screaming and being weird. So that's one of my favorite Nightingale songs ever, and it's just started to exist because it's a remix.
I got to dig into those.
It's a remix plus re-recording. My brother played some new guitar stuff on it, and it's bloody amazing.
It is. I tell you what I love about you, Dan. You're kind of we're kindred spirits. Maybe you don't feel that way, but I do. When I say that is that why I say that is, like Michael, like these people that you meet in life that they're just not locked into, I only listen to death metal. I only listen to the most extreme black metal. I love a lot of that shit, but I cannot listen to that all the time. I got to listen to Miles Davis. I got to listen to Joni Mitchell. I just got the last Joni Mitchell box set. I gotta keep moving throughout various different things. As I mentioned earlier, I love fucking Journey, man. The mid period of Journey is my favorite. Best. Oh, it's Steve Perry. God, fucking the GOAT. Anyway, this project is great because it really highlights your diversity. And I know your brother's involved with it as well. And it sounds the way you've described him as he's incredibly diverse as well in his listening. And maybe not as much as you, but the point I'm getting at here is that, yes, this gets much more progressive. This gets a little bit more streamlined and gets a little bit more, I want to say hard AOR. It's got a little bit more of a radio accessibility sort of vibe to it. Is this done? We're done, right? I mean, Retribution's it.
Well, you should never say never. There's so much stuff going on that I don't see Nightingale going back to releasing full albums and this and that. It's just, I felt already during the Retribution session that this is it. I felt you should leave the party when it's the most fun, and for me at least, I had the most fun on Retribution because it's pretty much my album. So it went a little bit back to the first album where I did everything myself. The input from the other guys, of course, it's there, but it was my baby. And I feel that opening the Pandora's box of releasing only one new song or whatever, I don't really know what that should bring. Because we will not play live again. We will not do this and that because I live in Germany, they live in Sweden, we all have lives. There is no one there to finance or fund anything. I mean, Just the fucking gasoline prices here gives you a fucking shock. Imagining that I would have to drive like 15 hours to Sweden to rehearse, I would lose so much money. I would live in a fucking tent just to play one show. So not gonna happen. But I'm happy with what we left behind, and that it's reissued again, except Retribution. It's for me crazy to have White Darkness on vinyl and some, all the stuff on vinyl, that I never had before.
True,
especially some of those albums that have that vinyl vibe to them, and it's out there and it's insane. And I did my very best to make sure that each album got the love and attention it needed, with finding photographs and finding all with the liner notes and layout stuff. And man, I spent so much time and money with the layout that you cannot fucking believe it.
These are fantastic reissues. They're done with a lot of care to detail, a lot of attention to detail.
Yeah, the way they should be, and I'm inspired by the big guys. I'm inspired by the reissues from Rush and Marillion. I want them to be in that level. But I mean, of course, we're all limited, but there was an okay budget, and I might have spent a little bit too much of the money I should have, saved for my audio work. I bought then the original Moontower photo for €1,000, but what the fuck? Now it's there on the fucking cover, and I didn't want any other eye on the cover. That's the version that will be out there, and it's selling well from what I get. I'm selling shit tons of them through my wife's web thing, the Swano merch stuff. We're selling Moontowers. Some guys order 4 or 5, and I don't know if they are stocking up because they saw how much the other version is fetching on Discogs, or if they're giving it out to friends, or they're going to play them all back in some strange Atmos version with 5 LP players. I have no idea, but it's fantastic.
We're going to wrap up here shortly. Had a couple questions from the chat, but what I wanted to say real quick was these versions. You've probably seen the Jethro Tull books too, right? Have you seen those extensive anniversary editions? You haven't? You're not a Tull fan?
No, I like 1 or 2 songs. Surprisingly, one of the songs is called Elegy. I might have stolen that title from them, but who knows?
Well, they do. Let me just show you. I've got one sitting right here. Even that you're not a fan, but you talk about doing it right, and I don't know that there's that. And I think Marillion kind of stole a little bit of this from them. But I just pulled one at random. The Bursting Out one. It's 6 discs. Well, no, this was only 3 actually. It's 3.
It's like a Blu-ray thing. I was hoping that maybe someday I could put out something in this Blu-ray size box thing, but it was pretty early. They didn't do
Blu-rays. They did DVD audio, and it's
DVD and CDs. And I love that format. I have it for all the Marillion stuff.
But I mean, crazy. You talk about liner notes, man. I mean, like Ian's got a steel trap memory, man. Just like this is like reading a novel about each album, and it's fantastic.
That's wonderful.
And Ian Anderson might be the most prolific songwriter on the face of the fucking planet. That guy wrote amazing amounts of excess material that never made the albums, that was just as good as the albums. So have you ever met Steven? I'm assuming you have, right?
No.
You never met Steven Wilson?
Nope.
Through Michael? Wow, that's
no. I don't meet Michael that much, and when I do meet him, Steven is nowhere around.
Okay, I just for some reason
actually I have met Steven Wilson at Mike's wedding.
That's what I was going to say. I thought, that.
Well, but it's not like I don't think we shook hands or introduced or whatever. I think
you're not buds.
I was so starstruck being sitting next to Reine Fiske from Landberg that I was just like, that's enough for me,
Wait, who were you sitting next to?
Reine Fiske from Landberg, one of the guitar players that inspired a lot of this whole Moontower thing, came out of finding the Swedish prog like Änglagård and Landberg and that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, and of course that inspired the hell out of me.
Anecdoten.
Yeah, not that much. They are too King Crimson for me. But the other ones, Änglagård is crazy good. But Landberg, there's something about this One Man Tells Another album. There's a song called You Are, which is mind blower.
Yeah, I have what's the album with the wolf on there? Not the wolf, but the is it a wolf that's on the front?
I have one. The one I
Landberg.
talk about, I think there's a stork and a little baby or something like that. On
Yeah, I
the One Man Tells Another. Anyhow, let's get with the questions.
Yeah, I want to
I'm
get the questions for people out here. So let me just kind of go through here. Another Witherscape album. I think we answered that question. It's probably not going to happen at this point.
But I hope for reissues. Reissues would be cool. So labels
that would
out
be great.
there.
Is there a
there
lot
was
of
one
bonus-
actually. It was supposed to come out Inheritance, but then shit happened with Corona and it just died a death. It was ready to the point that I had masters, CD layout, everything sent to the label, and they said, no, cannot. Works not.
Is there Witherscape
Sorry.
bonus stuff to do? Is there bonus stuff?
Hello.
Okay. Yeah.
So much.
That's a dumb question with you. I gather you have hard drives full of shit that's crazy out there.
Yeah, I have more terabytes than I have brain cells, I think.
Yeah. Someone asked, "What's the maceration story with the maceration album?" You want to hit that fast?
Maceration, yeah, it was kind of funny that they were the guys from Invocator, and the first ever interview I ever got in the mail was from Jakob Schultz from Invocator and his fanzine. So we were both on Black Mark, and we played a gig together the night we got signed with Entombed headlining. So we kind of knew each other. And Maceration was a Danish death metal band. They had some demo roots, but before I knew it, Jakob Hansen, who these days is a super big producer, mixer guy in Denmark, he was on the drums. Jakob Schultz was on the guitar. And then there's other guy whose name I am so sorry that I forgot, but I think he was kind of the Maceration guy. And they lost their singer. And in a moment of panic, because they had signed a deal with, I think, Turbo Records, it was called, and had studio booked and all that. And they reached out to me and said, we will fly you down here to Odense, I think it was. And can you sing on this album? Yeah, and you know me, projectaholic, Yeah, of course. First time ever on a fucking airplane.
That's a perfect name for you, projectaholic. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I just took the flight, took the train, and on the train I wrote some lyrics, and I was really tired. I got off on the train station. It was like 10 or 11 in the evening. I was like, oh, hi guys, And first they tried to speak Danish, and I tried to speak Swedish, and we just looked at each other and was like, no, let's do this in English, And then said, where can I sleep? I'm so tired. And they looked at me, no, you have to sing now. And I'm like, now? Yeah, we have the studio booked around the clock. We worked 2 shifts to get ready. It was one of those super fancy studios with the big SSL console and the Struder machines and a fucking Steinway Grand and the best Neumann mics and whatever. And I just had to sing. And my voice was okay for the first couple of songs. And then I completely lost my voice. And I could get some kind of whisper at a little bit more volume going, because there was no other option. So you hear my voice change gradually. But luckily they had one of those Brulenkier microphones that I think is a microphone you use to measure other stuff,
like to
make sure it's correct. This
ribbon mic?
Brulenkier, yeah, they're called DPA later on in world.
Okay.
And I think they used that weird pen mic on me once I started doing this whispering thing. And it really picked up that weird raspy. I never sounded like that again. And I remember at one point, we were so bad with the time that I said, here are the lyrics. Okay, I just hit record and I will sing, no fucking rehearsals, because I was afraid the voice would be completely gone. So there's one track on that album where I hear it for the first time. I sing it for the first time, and I'm just going off like Martin Valkyrie from Sabbath, like, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden, at the last word, I'm like, da, 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 and there's a pause in the music, and it just goes on. And I'm like, how did that happen? It sounds like we rehearsed this fucking thing for weeks, That was just such a fluke. And I think, wow, that's the funniest thing. And
that's one I need to check out. I never checked out the Maceration.
Yeah, and that was Serenade of Agony. I do the piano, keyboard intro, and all that stuff. Super much fun, super nice guys. And then nothing happened for a long time. And then they reached out to me a couple of times, but I kind of forgot about it. At least they asked me, and I said no, and I said no. And then there came a time when I felt like, fuck, I need to branch out a little bit into the world of session stuff, to bring a little bit more money. And then I agreed to do the singing on the Maceration album. if I could do the mixing and the mastering, and they were happy to. And they changed the style a bit to the Swedish death metal, and I think, oh, fucking awesome! I want to make one of those early Sunlight albums with me before I die. So it was a good match, and that was it. I fucked my voice up in ways I cannot describe, but it was fun. And sadly, I, for various reasons, couldn't sing on the next album, but I got to mix and master it anyway. So
cool.
That's my maceration story. They are super, super awesome guys, and I wish them the best.
They're still going?
They're playing live all the time. They are like a proper fucking band, even like rehearsing and doing stuff. You know, it's like they're real.
I think they might be playing. They might be playing Death Fest this year. I'm not
Could
sure.
be.
Anyway,
Could be.
a couple questions on the shipping issue with Swano merch. Which, by the way, in the description, I've got. I believe Dan can look it over once we're done and hit me up via email. Double check that I've got all your links. I think I've got them all there, the things that you would want. But Swano merch, there is some issues, I guess, in Germany, I guess, with the shipping and VAT, or not VAT, the tariff bullshit that's been going on. This guy is in France. He's saying, could you find a solution to be able to deliver to France? I imagine you're not delivering to the U.S. either, are you?
We are. At the moment, there's a thing on the website that we can send through UPS.
Okay.
Yeah, but the shipping is not funny. But it's the cheapest possible tract. We don't do uninsured, and we don't lie to the customs. So that's the one thing I can help out with. But if you're ordering a bunch of stuff, we get a lot of these orders at the moment, actually. We have just got an order from China where a bunch of friends just got together and they all split the shipping. And in the end, I think each guy will pay like 10 euros shipping, because there was a shit was 5 Crimson LPs, 4 of that one, you know. And what I say to the Americans, you can just get in touch with us if you want to order it. We're everywhere on, you know, Facebook, Instagram, whatever.
Yep.
And due to some weird bug in the system, you cannot so easily say, oh, this order is perfect with UPS, and where we buy the shipping is on another place that sell it cheaper. So some days it's 14% cheaper. Oh, today it's 19% cheaper to buy UPS. Shifting. It's Jumanji or whatever it's called. Where we go. Yeah,
I really want to get a couple of shirts. I want to get a couple of shirts, but when I looked at it, to be honest with you, Dan, I'm in the US, obviously. It was gonna cost me like $40 in shipping, and then the shirt on top of it. So I gotta we'll see.
I fully understand that, but there is no other way around it. The shipping prices have gone through the roof.
Crazy.
Yeah, when we started Swano merch, we could send a vinyl untracked for $4.
I know, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah, now it's $50.
Yep.
$50. Because they picked a lot of options. But for the France thing, there's nothing we can do. It's hard to explain, but the way that during the Corona pandemic, there was so much garbage from everyone sending things, plastic, and there was also paper stuff. So that they say, we have to end this. We have to make life really hard for small companies to send shit from, for example, Germany to Sweden or Germany to France. You have to pay a lot of money and register to weird places everywhere to make sure that you pay for the garbage you produce to be fixed. Yeah. Yep. And the problem is that Swano merch operate on a pretty small basis. It's fun. We do it on the side. And you have to pay sometimes like 200-300 euros per year to do it legally.
Or what? Taxes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And this means that we have to make so many orders to France that we make a profit enough to pay that fee. It's never going to happen, because we have only a couple of euros of profit, because that's the way we work. We don't want to, you know. So sorry, people. I'm terrible. You know, for us, we are the ones who suffer the most, because we had to leave out God knows how many countries from the reissue sales. We could go for Germany because we pay that fee anyway. And then we had to go for the US. But then that shit happened there with whatever. And now we can do it through UPS. So sorry, we can. There's no way that we can do it at the moment. I have seen, though, that some people have bypassed this. There was this guy from some country. You can order something called like a shipping bypass thing. It's probably not cheap at all. You can send it to somewhere in the near from Berlin. And I know that this guy booked then that this company in Berlin will send it to him in wherever he live in the EU. It's kind of a legal bypass because this company, they are probably paying all the fees to send packages into every EU country. But that's a service. Yeah. So you could look into that stuff. The guy from China, he looked into it. And he was all set up. Please send it to his Chinese name, care of some place in Berlin. And of course, the Berlin place will send it to China. But we're out of it. We're legal. So look that up. I'm not 100% sure what it's called, but it's what we have like 10, 15 customers who use this.
Yeah, I've heard of what you're talking
system.
about, but I don't know what it's called either. And I'm not sure what.
No.
I've heard of that recently because somebody was using
and
it.
It's a clever thing because we're absolutely not alone. You cannot pay that. You know, it's just not working. I cannot even afford to do it. You know, with the neighbor countries here. Sorry, we don't make that kind of money. So
it's kind of killed. I don't know if you're familiar with Van Records or Darkness Shall Rise. They're German companies. That do amazing stuff. But the price is so crazy anymore to import. It's like, wow, just for the shipping, you're like,
it's insane.
Do I really need this bad? Zizor Black Sun says, when will we get some new Nightingale music? Well, Dan?
Yeah, you won't. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
You can listen to the bonus CDs. You get some new old Nightingale music, like the version of Alive Again, all my remixing stuff. There's plenty of unreleased cool demo stuff on every Nightingale. They are so expanded, sometimes maximizing the playing time of a fucking CD.
Yeah. There's tons. I mean, it's well worth grabbing. And I hate to, I don't want to piss you off, to be honest with you here, but I don't know. Amazon does have them. And I mean,
of course,
seems to be the cheapest place to grab them.
I have no issues when I see the shipping price being more than one CD. I mean, you have to be a little bit weirdo to pay that much for my signature, but some people are doing it. But there is this whole thing that we used to do also in Sweden, that we get together and we make free shipping. So it was like 10, 15 guys ordering a big package. And I can just say, if you're in America and you have a couple of friends who want to have some signed stuff, get together, and I assure you that the shipping might be down to like $5-6 per head.
It would be. Yeah, it would be for sure. Yeah. The Chris M. Grant says, Dan Swanö, you're the man. Hell yeah. There you go.
Thank you.
Studio Marco Tervonen says, TGNA Dana. Is that hello to Jana Dan?
Yeah, Jana Dan. Yeah.
Jana Dan. Okay.
Jana, the box, Marco. I still remember sending out his Kurnogia demo tape. This is one with a weird memory. It's 1990.
He's been there.
Yeah, Marco. He was later in The Crown and Crown of Thorns, and he played in a lot of bands. He's a long-time Edge of Sanity fan. I don't think you can be an Edge of Sanity fan longer than he was.
He's the guy. He's the man. He wants to know about PTM. Elaborate. The album sounded so pro. New equipment. What happened? PTM.
Pandemonium.
Yeah, Pandemonium. Yeah, I would imagine the first one.
I don't know. We made three of them.
Yeah, it says the first one. It says the first one.
The Dawn of Dreams.
Yeah, that album sounded so pro all of a sudden. New equipment in the studio. What happened? We didn't even touch
I guess it was it was new stuff. It was my brother's 8-track Fostex reel to reel with the console that came with it, and that opened up a whole world of stuff. And I've learned a little bit, of course, through doing a lot of stuff, and compared it to the Dawn demo and the Dream 2 EP, it's a great progress there, definitely.
Would you ever I gather Century Media didn't want the Panthymonium stuff.
They cannot have it. I do not own
Oh,
it.
you don't own it. Okay.
It's Osmos and Relapse.
Would they? You think Osmos, have they ever reached out thinking about doing a reissue like this, or is that?
Yeah,
not-
they are reissuing the stuff already, and
Okay. 'Cause I know
it's been
Relapse did.
licensed to the Crypt, and there are some other labels who did cassette stuff and all that, but
Okay.
no proper remix.
Like
I don't
this.
think there's a budget demand for me. I mean, technically, I could remix Dawn of Dreams if anyone would like to hear it, but it would cost probably more than they would ever make from a reissue to have me remix it. So it kind of shoots itself in the foot.
Yeah. Somebody here says, any free left, please do Crimson 3, but then we get down here and Dylan says, as far as I'm concerned, the Northern Sanctuary title song is Crimson 3. I kind of agree with that.
It's actually Crimson 2.5 was my word.
2.5. There you go.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got, I know there was a couple other. When will there be a concert in France at Hellfest? Lou Dog is hoping. He's hoping.
Yeah.
I have to find him. I have to get him hooked up with the Hellfest guys and get that $2 million buy-in from Hellfest. That's what.
Yeah, and I will do the Avatar thing. That seems like a cheap option.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Still no shipping in the U.S. We just talked about that. Let's see. I saw a couple other ones that were in here.
Just to clarify about this, you can go on the homepage, and you can just send us your order, and I will let you know the shipping, and then you can decide if you want the stuff or not.
Do it. Yeah.
And that's I can tell you the shipping for vinyl is somewhere around $35, I think, and that package
for one.
For one album, yes, but you can order more albums, more CDs, T-shirts, all that kind of stuff, and the shipping stays the same.
Okay, that's good to know right there.
Yeah.
Let's see. I know I saw a couple things here that came on. Don't forget to Heavy Metal Machine. Don't forget to the Heavy Metal Machine album.
Yeah, that's one. It's the Steel project that I did with the Opeth guys.
Okay, I'm not.
And that's it's been happening for, I don't know, 10 years now, 15 years, but it's still not coming out. Some management issues between Opeth and the label, or something is there that it just doesn't make financial sense to release it. And I think they're just trying to kill it, which makes sense because I don't see how Steel can do Opeth any good.
Yeah. I have a question here. I read from Nystrom in liner notes for Brave Murder Day that when Michael recorded vocals, his voice was almost quiet as a whisper in the recording booth. Is that accurate? Yeah, I've read that same stuff, that Mike kind of whisper growls it. He's got this way of doing that. Was that how it was on that album? Because those vocals on that, to me, the vocals on Brave Murder Day might be the best vocals Mike's ever done. They're just so...
Yeah, they're raw. They're raw as fuck. Raw. No, Mike growl in a very low. His clean singing is louder.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that it's a strong whisper, and I envy his technique. I think most people could try to do this how he do it, this kind of compressed sound that you could make, but most people end up coughing their brains out after like 2.5 seconds. But he somehow got over that reflex and just kept at it.
So it's mostly diaphragmatic?
I don't know what it is, but it's the best, but it's something that didn't really kill his vocal cords in a way that my growling was like 148 million decibels, and it killed every bone in my body. And that was my curse. I could not growl at a low, okay volume. I had to kill myself with every line.
You probably sang more from a vocal, like upper register, like up in your chest and your throat versus down lower.
I sang with my whole body. I had pain everywhere after growling sessions.
There's another Life song. There is another Life song called Tree of Existence, and there is a unicorn version. Did Dan consciously make that to be more like a unicorn song?
I don't know. I'm not involved in. I think Another Life is a project that I did a lot of session stuff for this Andreas guy.
Mm-hmm.
The Tree of Existence. Andreas is one of the world's biggest unicorn fans.
Okay.
And he's spoken lately about making unicorn cover versions and stuff. So it might be that when we did that song that I don't remember now, so on top of my head, might be that it's. I mean, when I'm involved and you ask me to go all soft prog, it's going to sound like unicorn. That's easy, you know.
What project has Dan done that has the most deep and personal lyrics?
Moontower.
Yeah, that's what I was going.
Yeah, there's nothing even comes close. There's some dark stuff with Nightingale. There's the Better Safe Than Sorry lyric is very personal, and then it's definitely Moontower.
Segue there real quick, side segue. Witherscape. Paul did all the lyrics for both albums?
Yeah.
What was
Thank
the
you
reasoning
again, Paul.
What was the reasoning behind that?
I couldn't write lyrics. I just honestly didn't have any inspiration or any time. And I just knew that Paul, he was like, I'm going to release a book with my November's Doom lyrics. And I'm like,
he's so good.
Man, you really love lyrics. Could you please write, you know? And he's like, I'd love to. And I'm like, you have to follow my scratch vocal syllable by syllable and replace it with something that actually tells a story. And he's like, I will do it. You know,
he's amazing. He's an amazing.
He's the best. And, he is the best.
I got to tell you that their Major Arcana album, man, that fucker sounds savage. It is such a good album. I still really love the Pale Haunt. Pale Haunt's still my favorite of theirs. But dude, your mixing job and mastering job on that is fucking superlative. It is so
Thank
good.
You.
The guitar just take your head off. And Paul's singing on that album might be the best singing I think he's done. Actually.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, I also think it's actually I have a relationship with Pale Haunt, but there's some stuff about the drumming that puts me off a little bit. But the new one, it's just how can you do your best album so many years into the career?
This late
it's
into
crazy.
The career. Yeah. Who are some mixing engineers you like that are active now?
Jens Bogren.
Yeah, of course.
I like also Jakob Hansen. He do a really good job. And Chris Lord-Alge, Bob Clearmountain, and
Is Chris Lord-Alge still alive?
Yeah, he is still mixing all the time.
Why did I think he died? That's kind of weird. Okay, that's crazy.
You know, his brother is also pretty cool, but I don't have the same kind of relationship to his mixing. Yeah, I would say those are. I do also like Andy Sneap for what he do. There's no one who does Andy Sneap better than Andy Sneap. And but I would say that there's so many good guys out there. It scares me sometimes, you know. you get like, I should mix an album, and I always ask for a reference because I need to know what the band think is the best sound they ever heard, and they would love to have it. And then I get it, and I'm like, wow, this sounds amazing. Who mixed it? And then it's like, like never heard of the guy, and he makes an album that sounds so good, I just want to scream.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to nail that, and then maybe a little bit better. And in the old times, you heard about every guy who mixed the record. I knew them all. I knew the Colin Richardsons. I knew I even knew the weird ones, you know. But now there are guys who's just kicking my ass in so many ways, and I never heard about him. And it's a bit scary. So I'm lucky that I have my heritage, the connection. It's really, really, really cool. And it's scary. I'm sure a lot of them will just eventually say, oh, this is boring. I will venture on to other things. But it's definitely more crowded out there than it was in 1994. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, again, the internet thing has brought the way that you record is quite different than in 1980s and 1990s. Once the hard drive and digital recording started, it just fucking widened the field so quickly. Now, granted, you do, and this is one thing, and this is another, gratuitous Dan Swanö worship moment here, but you're clearly a very intelligent guy because, I'm still trying to write my album on Logic, and I'm old, so I have trouble with the digital stuff. I know just enough to be dangerous. long story short, you clearly got in very early on that and really beelined into understanding the MIDI technology and the way that digital was going to kind of take over. Because you don't really see, I gather there are still real recording studios out there, but you don't see any analog studios, I think, that are doing anything anymore. Everything's either hybrid or full digital, right? In like big studios.
Yeah, you will always have them, you know. They will be there, but they are acquired tastes, and there's maybe
They're expensive.
one in every major city. If,
Yeah, they're
if you
expensive.
know that guy, yeah, it's fucking
Yeah.
expensive. Alone
Yeah.
buying the tape, and
Hey,
you need to have, you need to play. You know, you need to be good to
Yeah.
record, to tape. It's all
Yeah.
like some people just love that kind of shit, and they don't want anything else, and that's fine. You know, I couldn't wait to get into the digital world. And the first time I worked with an Atari computer in 1991, I think it was, we recorded the keyboards into the MIDI, and we, you know, said, when can I record my vocals into this fucking computer and cut and copy and move and fix?
Yeah.
You know,
that
was my seed. I need to do, and then the drums, and then the bass, and you know, and fixing. So I was extremely early into the digital stuff. But I was always scared of
Steven Wilson too. Same thing.
Yeah, scared of computers other than Atari up until the point when Apple released the G3, the blue-white version.
Yeah, the blue-white.
Then it seemed like they could handle the workload. So I spent a fucking fortune on that one, and I was in the box around 1999, I think.
Was it really? Right.
And I never left.
Yeah, right around when the internet started to take off. Yeah, that's crazy. All right, I got 5 quick ones to get you out of here. 3 hours. I am so sorry I stole this much time from you, but I hope you want to do maybe a part 3 somewhere down the road where we'll knuckle down on some of the weirder stuff that you do, like Karabujan.
Yeah, of course.
I just ordered that today. I listened to it. I'm like, this is one I didn't even know about. And I found
of course, the world needs to know more about Karabujan. Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. So,
shoot.
Quick hitters here. I did want to ask you about the DADADE tuning and where you might have pulled that from, because that's basically a D suspended tuning. Most people go dad gad. They don't tune up. They tune that. They don't tune the G. They tune the E down to a G instead of leaving it at E. Where did you hear that? Where did you come across that?
I invented that tuning, as far as I'm concerned.
Really?
On the first day of the recording I came down to the studio. I was day drunk on a Monday or something like that, and I picked up Michael's guitar, and I said, okay, I need to write and record an album now in a week. I better be fucking inspired. And then I remember how inspired I was when I discovered the tuning with my indie rock band Subway Mirror. We had a very special tuning. Mm-hmm. And I just started tuning. Like I did the D drop thing, and then I did the G string up to A. But I think it's actually lower on the Breathing Shadow, because I was afraid to break strings and I didn't have any new ones. So it's like more like a C, G, C thing than a DAD. But I just wanted the open chord to sound awesome the way it is. No need to like a drone thing, and then I could actually play stuff on like one string and just move it across, and this way have this kind of weird vibe going. There was no way that I could play any old ideas. I could not bring up any strumming E minor to A minor to D minor. Didn't happen. I had no idea what to put my fucking fingers. And when I played melody stuff, you know, that note was not there anymore. All of a sudden, smart. I mean, the melody for Nightfall Overture, it's all based upon the fact that another note just showed up in that position. And I'm like, oh, that's a better note. It used to be up here, but now it's there.
It made you rethink your creativity.
Yeah,
it really made
I could not go back, and it inspired the fuck out of me. And I wrote a song all the time. It was crazy.
Wow. If I'm not wrong, too, and maybe I'm wrong, but it looks like you're lefty, and do you play the strings like Eric Gales does, like upside down, like you're?
Yeah.
Dude, how do people fucking do that? I don't get it. I never get when anybody can do that.
But it's just hard as for me to imagine how you can play a guitar the other way around.
So you took one of Dog's guitars, flipped it upside down, and started playing like
Yeah.
upside down. That's bizarre,
Yep.
dude. That is
No,
so
I was not trying to be a guitar player, but
Yeah.
the Ghost switched from keyboards to guitar, and I said, I have to keep on writing. So I took his Spanish guitar, which, I mean, I knew from an early age that I held the guitar in the wrong way, but I could never get myself around to reversing. I think I did it like once or twice. I actually tried to play the right string order, but left-handed.
Like
and
low
it's
to
very
high.
interesting.
Low
I
to
play
high.
some super weird stuff on a normally stringed guitar, because I play them solo on the bass strings and rhythms on the solo strings. Sounds so fucked up. But no, I just did it because I'm a drummer, and I'm a guy who don't really like to spend time on doing stuff when I don't have to. So I just learn how to play upside down.
That fucking blows my mind, dude. I mean, when I see a guy like, Eric Gales, do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know, and he is mind-blowing.
Fucking
man,
sick. You're like, what is that? Like, come on, man. I've been playing a long time and I can't play like that. And he plays upside down and left-handed. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, the Randy guy from Atheist also played upside down.
That's
and
right, Rand
Kelly
Berkey.
played. Yeah, but
Rand
he's
Berkey.
also a lefty, so we saw them live.
That's
and there were two left-hand guitar players. One of them played like me, and everyone was like, that guy's playing upside down. What the fuck?
Right. He did.
Yeah,
that's right.
Crazy.
Because the weird thing it does for you is having the high E up top like that, you tend to, instead of bending up, you bend down. So you get a different inflection in the notes. The bend notes tend to be weirdly different. That's why Rand Berkey's solos on those first two Atheist albums are really strange. They don't sound like anybody else's kind of solos. But all right, I got a couple quick ones. Did you ever meet Quorthon?
Yes.
Okay.
For like one handshake in the door of Black Mark headquarters in Berlin. I was leaving, he was arriving, and we said, hey, courtesy shake, and I left and he went in.
Okay, so it was two ships passing in the night.
He was doing promo.
The new November album. You did the mixing and mastering of that, and I had a Carmelo on a couple months ago, and I was shocked to see them back. And he had nothing but the most glowing. He loves you to death, and he's like, without him, we wouldn't have put this album together. So he gave you a ton of credit for pretty much arranging the album and mixing and mastering it. And it's a beautiful album. It really, I never thought I'd see another album from them, to be honest with you. I just didn't think that was going to happen.
Oh, it's great. I'm super grateful that they stick with me. They came back for the album I did a bunch of years ago, and it's never an easy birth with the November guys. But this one was the easiest yet. But I just felt they're not coming back. This was too much trouble at the end, But super happy they came back, and I think it's their best album.
It's
Definitely.
wonderful. It's super progressive, but it still sounds like them, and it has just this beautiful. The cover art really, the cover art to that album sounds like the album sounds to me.
Yeah,
it's got
this is a very clever. They're very into the blue stuff, like myself.
Whatever happened to the Frame Shift album you were going to sing on? That just never happened. Never going to happen.
I think it just died with this guy being not into it anymore. I was not supposed to sing on it. I just kind of did an audition, and it kind of but I already had someone. But maybe you could also, it was one of those things.
Oh, for Henning,
and
right? That's the main guy.
Yeah, and I think it showed up on YouTube or something. He got in touch with me, and
I don't think it ever came out officially. I think
there's a little bit of it, or I might mix it up with something else. He did some AI stuff and lifted my voice, asked if I had the originals, which I had, and I sent it to him, and I think he used it to he is doing a YouTube channel when he review guitar stuff and so.
Yeah, he got into that whole thing. That probably took over all of his time. I got 3 more quick hitters for you. Retribution, is that going to be reissued with this remastering and all this stuff or not?
No. I was hoping so, but it seems not even the anniversary stuff and all that just came and went. But like I said, if there's a label out there that want to do stuff, you can sub-license stuff from Sony Century Media, Inside Out. If you want to release Retribution on blue vinyl again, get in touch, license it, release it. You know, it's just a business thing. It's not locked in this way, you know. Alone Records did some really cool stuff, making sure that stuff was available on vinyl, and so they released a fucking Unicorn album. We need more labels like Alone Records, please.
Yeah. Second Sky, is that ever gonna happen or not?
Never say never, but at the moment it's really stillborn project for me. I just did a little bit too much. I cared too much for that thing, and the songs are still the best I ever wrote, which is why I think they deserve a destiny which is far better than this, what I can give them at the moment. And I think, honestly, I toy around with the idea that maybe when I'm getting into retirement and there will be some money coming in from the state all the time, you don't have to focus your brains out to work, you know, maybe
about work,
I will go back and dig in that album like I go back now and dig in shit from Closing Chronicles or Purgatory Afterglow, whatever, and I will re-record these songs with the best musicians that I can find and have it as my retirement project, because the songs are already up to 30 years old, so they're aging very well, because they are those magic moment songs that just they cannot be a part of anything else than what I consider to be the best album ever made. And it just musically, I think it is to a certain extent. And then there are pieces that don't age as well as the rest, and that kind of kills it, you know. Then I have to rewrite that part or cut it out. And I know that I set the bar way too high, but, you know, that's the only bar I can set for songs that I feel have that magic. And I still have like it's on every fucking backup drive I ever owned. There's a Second Sky folder, so we'll see someday. Thanks for asking.
I did one question on this from my buddy Jimmy, the guy that I did the deep. No more questions, guys. We're ending here. I gotta give Dan his life back tonight. On this album, the song "The Examiner," the opening melody sounds a lot like it was the Uncreation melody.
Yeah, it is. It is exactly.
It is the same thing. Okay. Yep. Jimmy, you were right.
It's one of those. It's the weirdest story about that. Good. It's like
so good.
Yeah, the story is that I wrote that. That's the intro for the original death metal version of Uncreation, and I could never remember the fingering of the chord, because it's a very unusual way to put your fingers on the neck.
Okay.
And I don't know why I did it, but it's nothing natural about it, and I could never find how to play that thing again. It's super weird. And I remember hearing it.
Times,
I heard it on a riff tape. I think I heard it on when I was going through my DAT tapes. I heard that first version of Uncreation. I think, wow, that is such a fucking awesome thing. I have to use that again. And I tried to find the fingering. It just didn't work. You know, I tried to play it on the piano. It didn't really work. And then one day, out of the blue, working at the music shop, I picked down, I think it was a Taylor acoustic.
Yeah.
And I put my fingers in exactly the same position as the first chord.
No fucking way.
And I think, who and what the fuck just happened in the universe? I get fucking
30
chills
years later. I
no, it was like, it was not that much later, but I had not been trying to find it. It's like my subconscious found it for me and told me, play guitar now. Put my fingers there, and there it was. And I'm like, never gonna forget this fucking fingering again. And I think I had like a voice memo on my phone. It's like 6th fret on the E string, 4th fret on the D string, blah, 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 you know, trying it. Do not, because once you find it, the claw, it's like a really fucked up position.
Yeah.
It's all there. You just release that finger, move that thing. But unless you play, it's like backwards from how you would play anything else.
Yeah.
That's the story about that one.
That's so fucking cool. But Jimmy, you're right. And I went back and listened to it this morning before you came on. I'm like, fuck, that has to be it. That is it.
Yeah, it is.
Somebody wanted to know if you would ever remaster this. I'm sure you would if you got paid for it, right?
I've tried a little bit to work on the Northern Sanctuary just for fun, and
No, this
there
one
is
here. This one here.
yeah. Which one is it?
Death's Design from Diabolical.
No, there's nothing left of that one. I would love
It's
to.
all gone? Okay.
It was recorded in my Mac computer in my living room,
And you lost
and
it?
I think my entire system was like a gigabyte, and you could not back up shit. And
Oh, yeah.
it's just like completely lost. That
just
one would have to be re-recorded.
It's funny. I've had Night Work forever, which was not the first one you worked on, because the first one you worked on was this one. But I'd never heard this. And I have a friend who's constantly going, dude, you got to get those other Diabolicals. And I'm like, all right, I'll get to it. And so all three of these just dropped in. I grabbed all the three that I didn't have. And, hey, man, it's Anders. I think last thing here, my friend Nate, I got to ask for him because he's a sick-ass guitar player. Young cat, too. With the extensive list of bands Dan's worked with, I'd be curious of his opinion on who's the most or one of the most talented guitar players he's ever worked with. Well, he's friends with Mike, so there's that. But what Ragnar, you said, right?
Yeah, but when I should be a little bit more like maybe going back in time to one of those moments when you felt that there is a level of playing out there that you don't often get to see in real life. It was actually the guitar player from a band called Godgory from Karlstad, Sweden. They were doing the demo, and they had then they were a duo, and then they had some friends that played in a progressive metal band called Word of Silence. They released an album on Black Mark.
Okay.
And it was this guy. He was, a few kilos too much. Came down. There was like super nice, friendly guy. So this is our guitar player, and I was like, yeah, okay. See, and then this guy started playing.
Unleashes.
And I was just like, is John Petrucci hiding somewhere in here? What the fuck? He was so much better than any guitar player that ever recorded anything in Unisound at the time. And he was just playing the weirdest solos. Perfect spot on, no mistakes, perfect rhythm, perfect solos. And I think his name is Mikael something, Dahlberg or something. And I'm just like,
Godgory?
Godgory.
Okay.
Yeah, they released a couple of God and Gory in
G-O-R-Y.
Put together.
Okay. Yeah.
God, like the thing, G-O-D G-O-R-I. Yeah, he was on the first demo, and then they recorded an album with me, and he's also on the second album I did. And just his playing was the first time I felt, oh, so this is what, like when you're like Scott Burns and get to work with like James Murphy and Chuck and and not just this guy. No problem with the guys who recorded at Unisound, of course, but when it came to my personal preferences, guitar players that I've been around, Anders from Unicorn, super guitar player, but to see this kind of John Petrucci good playing in my studio, recording it, that was fucking mind-blowing. And that's the one thing that popped up.
Who's your favorite guitar player of all time?
It's really hard to say,
guy, right?
I would say the one that it's more of what they play, sometimes not how they play it. Sometimes I think there are some, I don't want to mention any names, but there are some players out there, they play stuff, and I just wish someone else would have played it because they would have a better vibrato or better something. But the one guy that springs to mind is always Dan Huff from Giant.
Oh my God,
he always blows my mind because he solos, and it's just insane.
Yeah, really. I thought maybe you might say Steve Rothery because I think
Steve
but Rothery...
there I do have some issues with there are sometimes some way he phrased things, but some of the solos he play are like the best. His note choices are the best. But sometimes he's got something about that stiff British school from Steve Hackett that is a little bit too angular. I like more the fluid Dan Huff style. Studio guitar player Steve Lukather is also extremely good. Learned to appreciate him a lot in the later years.
Are you a Toto fan? You a big Toto
Not
fan?
really until 2005. Then I dive into Toto.
Well, listen, Dan, I have kept you all fucking day. I really am sorry, but it was an amazing conversation. Talking to you is just so much fun. I would hope maybe we can do a part 3 sometime down the road when when you can go. Yeah, all right, I can talk to that guy again.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
it's been stellar talking about these. You're just one of the most creative dudes I've ever had the pleasure of laying my ears to. Even if it is, again, I've known about you for 30 plus years, but I didn't get to a lot of the meat of what you've done until much later. But it's been a in a weird way, it's been kind of one of those life altering sequence of events where it's like, God, man, I've found just the most amazing music to sink my teeth into for a while now. And, again, we talked about how music is that one thing. I'm like you, where I obsess over something for a while and then it kind of moves. But these are albums that will stay with me. I mean, just like the Rush albums, just like my favorite artist. This is amazing stuff. And anything you want to say to anybody to wrap up? And again, all of the I think all the links that you would need: Swano merch, the Bandcamp links, the your website, Unisound's
Yeah, you can put
website.
the CM distro thing also for the people who don't want to pay the crazy shipping. They should
I
get
think
the
I have
stuff
that in
anyway.
there. I
Yeah.
think I have that in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anything you want to say to wrap up real quick, and then just hang on 1 minute while I end.
Yeah, just thank you for taking the time, and anyone who listened, thank you for taking the time, and also if anyone wants me to mix and master the stuff, just get in touch. We are the website unisound.se. I'm open for all kinds of sonic adventures, and I think it's super cool to hear that my music that I created can somehow coexist in the same universe for you as the music that I listen to be inspired by the music. It's some kind of a weird full circle moment when someone mentioned that the stuff that I put out could coexist with Russian Marillion in your world, because in mine it could never. It's not compatible in this way. But I know I listen to some stuff that probably have the same thing, that I value some of the stuff, and I know that guy listened really much to Gentle Giant, but when I hear Spock Spear doing their Gentle Giant, I like it just as much, sometimes maybe even more, and they kind of coexist, But
it's that excitement that it's the power of the music and it getting in your soul, in your heart, in your head. It's what it does. It's curative, I think, in many cases. I think it's a wonderful gift, and you're an extremely talented guy. I know you. Again, you didn't watch the episode that Jimmy and I did, but at one point at the very end, I'm like, I just want to say that I pretty much hate Dan Swanö. I hate his fucking guts for writing the album that I wish I had written with Moontower.
yeah.
I mean, that's
I will watch it
compliment.
sometime. I'm pretty sensitive guy, and when it is so that I am still officially out there promoting Moontower, and someone just say one negative thing about something and 1,000 positive things, I only dwell on the negative. So I stay out of all that stuff until one rainy day I might need a little bit of a boost. Then I can listen to some old podcast I did, and that was me back in those days. Yeah.
Check it out. There's nothing.
I will. I promise you, one time I will.
All right, brother. Hang on 1 second. Thanks again to everybody that was here in the chat
welcome
today. Really appreciate it. Dan, hang on one moment, okay?